Welcome to the GameChanger 00100 show. I am your host, GameChanger. And yes, Malcolm X was Red Pill before the movie was made, before the Red Pill was a thing. All you have to do is read his book, not watch the movie by Spike Lee. You know, once you read his book, you will understand how Red Pill Malcolm X was. But before I get into that and to give people a little bit of time to come on, I want to talk about the whole Ice Cube thing. To be honest, I didn't even know that it was a thing. I mean, I've seen all the video thumbnails that featured him and, you know, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I already know how I'm going to vote, so I tried to stay away from it. I didn't know that the whole Claudia Jordan show that I review here chronically, because, you know, I have to cover the covets and I watch it so you don't have to, but I missed that jewel and trying to avoid politics. So apparently they were attempting to show dominance, you know, just showing him kissing the ring in front of his betters, or excuse me, in front of their betters. They wanted to show the Democratic Party that we have our men under control. And we will use that control to your benefit if you continue to provide us with what we want and need: more welfare, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, more feed for Blacks, more feed for women, but most feed for Black women. This is a contract that they had with the Democratic Party for quite some time now. You know, even before the boomers and before anything, this is a contract that they had. Basically, if you wanted to know who spoke for the family or who spoke for the community, you would make negotiations with Black women. They want to continue this, and they will always negotiate things that benefit them solely at the expense of Black men, because without that, control would slip from Black women, and they won't be able to negotiate for them in the future. The Democratic Party has been messing up for quite some time. Since Barack Obama, that whole Hillary fiasco where they backed her in the place of Bernie Sanders, you know, really put a black eye on them. And this election will see if they have bounced back from that. They're making mistakes. One of the mistakes that they're making is that they are over investing in the woman. Kamala Harris is an example of this. They're hoping that the women will have strength to sway the men to vote in the favor of the Democratic Party. And Ice Cube basically saying anything that's not consistent with what the Black women's agenda is runs counter to that. All right, so now I said my little piece on the political level. Now, when we think about Malcolm X, we think about the movie, which is actually very accurate, according to the book. However, you know, Spike Lee did put his slant on it, but for the most part, very accurate. He left out a lot of interesting little tidbits. Like, for one, Malcolm X was in a gang with none other than Red Fox. I found that interesting. There was an anecdote about him when he was a kid. He pushed the outhouse. They had outhouses back in his day. He pushed the outhouse back, and if I remember correctly, so the way outhouse work is you take a shit on it and it goes into a hole in the ground. So if you we're gonna get into that, Tampa. If you push the hole back, if you push the outhouse back, the hole will be in front of the outhouse. So at night, they did that, him and a couple other boys, they did that, and somebody stepped in it. Yeah, they fell into that hole, the shit hole, literally. So kind of funny, kind of interesting. So a lot of good things. Sometimes you just got to read the book and not just watch the movie. And if I hadn't have read the book, then I would not be able to come to you with what I have discovered about how Malcolm X really feels. Now, when we all heard the soundbite that the B-Dub likes to use when describing Malcolm X, and if you haven't, let's take a listen.
Respected person person in America is the black woman. The most unprotected a person in America is the black woman. The most neglected person in America is the black woman. And as Muslims, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us to respect our women and to protect our women. And the only time a Muslim really gets real violent is when someone goes to molest his woman. We will kill you for our woman. I'm making it plain, yes. We will kill you for our woman. We believe that if the white man will do whatever is necessary to see that his woman gets respect and protection, then you and I will never be recognized as men until we stand up like men and place the same penalty over the head of anyone who puts his filthy hands out to put in the direction of our women.
Okay. Now, I want to point out something about what he said. And black women, they use this as a lot, especially the least protected part of that little snippet, which really doesn't make sense because they, once again, there's only 4 people: black men, white women, black women. I mean, so there's really 4 people who's protected more out of the 4 is what you're saying. But I digress for a second. Notice he said our women. Throughout the whole thing, he said our women. These are our women. But what if they're not your women? What if this is a woman who finds herself fatherless because her mother chose to be independent and finds herself without a mate because she felt that she didn't need one? Would you protect her? Surely he lived in a time, and that time is today, where prostitutes exist. These prostitutes choose to instead, for money, allow themselves to be molested by members of another tribe. Do you protect them? Because essentially what you're doing is you're protecting them from themselves. Whenever you have an independent entity, you're protecting them from themselves, which means that your efforts, which could be better used protecting a pliant woman, is being misdirected. So once again, our women is what should be emphasized from that. That should be the takeaway. But because they want to use protection as a tool of manipulation, and men will do great things for the sake of protection, even die himself, they will always hold or play the least protected card. You shall protect us how I define protection. And my definition of protection is submission. You see, that's how that works. Do you realize that I can turn a person into a slave just by using the word protection? Take out the trash to protect me from disease. Clean the house to protect me from bacteria. Cook me food to protect me from starvation. You can chronically use protection as a means to control a population, always. Now, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to use Malcolm X as a rallying call to that because they know how brothers feel about Malcolm X. And they're saying that this is your leader. You should follow him. Okay, let's follow our leader, Malcolm X. Now, I don't have a copy of the book. It was a long time since I've read it, but I did here on YouTube find a copy of the audiobook. And the audiobook, I guess it was put in August of last year. But I'm going to let him speak for himself. And I'm not going to do what I normally do, which is interrupt every couple seconds. I'm going to let you hear the whole thing. And then I'll give my commentary on it.
Holding brothers and sisters on the street, speaking to rapt audiences, Malcolm X brought scores of new members to New York's Temple 7. He also established new temples in Hartford and Atlanta, and spurred more growth in the Philadelphia, Boston, and Springfield, Massachusetts temples. He spent so much time traveling that the nation provided him with a car. His life became one of constant motion, lecturing, teaching, spreading the word of Islam. He brought thousands of new members into the fold, and his words touched many thousands more. He was a dynamo, charismatic, dedicated, articulate, and as noted by increasing numbers of Muslim sisters, single.
I had always been very careful to stay completely clear of any personal closeness with any of the Muslim sisters. My total commitment to Islam demanded having no interest, especially I felt no women. In almost every temple, at least one single sister had let out some broad hint that she thought I needed a wife, so I always made it clear that marriage had no interest for me whatsoever. I was too busy. Every month when I went to Chicago, I would find that some sister had written complaining to Mr. Muhammad that I had talked so hard against women when I taught our special classes about the different natures of the two sexes. Now, Islam has very strict laws and teachings about women, the core of them being that the true nature of a man is to be strong and a woman's true nature is to be weak. And while a man must at all times respect his woman, at the same time he needs to understand that he must control her if he expects to get her respect. But in those days, I had my own personal reasons. I wouldn't have considered it possible for me to love any woman. I had too much experience that women were only tricky, deceitful, untrustworthy flesh. I had seen too many men ruined or at least tied down or in some other way messed up by women. Women talk too much. To tell a woman not to talk was like telling Jesse James not to carry a gun or telling a hen not to cackle. Can you imagine Jesse James without a gun or a hen that didn't cackle? And for anyone in any kind of leadership position such as I was, the worst thing in the world that he could have was the wrong woman. Even Samson, the world's strongest man, was destroyed by the woman who slept in his arms. She was the one whose words hurt him. Anyway, it had been 10 years since I thought anything about any mistress, I guess, and as a minister now, I was thinking even less about getting any wife. And Mr. Muhammad himself encouraged me to stay single. This sister, well, in 1956, she joined Temple 7. I just noticed her. Not with the slightest interest, you understand. For about the next year, I just noticed her. You know, she never would have dreamed I was even thinking about her. In fact, probably you couldn't have convinced her I even knew her name. It was Sister Betty X. She was tall, brown skin, darker than I was, and she had brown eyes. I knew she was a native of Detroit and that she had been a student at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, an education major. She was in New York in one of the big hospitals' school of nursing. She lectured to the Muslim girls in women's classes on hygiene and medical facts. One day, I thought it would help the women's classes if I took her, just because she happened to be an instructor, to the Museum of Natural History. I wanted to show her some museum displays having to do with the tree of evolution that would help her in her lectures. I could show her proofs of Mr. Muhammad's teachings of such things as that the filthy pig is only a large rodent. The pig is a graft between a rat, a cat, and a dog, Mr. Muhammad taught us. When I mentioned my idea to Sister Betty X, I made it very clear that it was just to help her lectures to her sisters. I had even convinced myself that this was the only reason. Then, by the time of the afternoon I said we would go, well, I telephoned her. I told her I had to cancel the trip, that something important had come up. She said, "Well, you sure waited long enough to tell me, Brother Minister. I was just ready to walk out the door." So I told her, well, all right, just come on then. I'd make it somehow. But I wasn't going to have much time. While we were down there, offhandedly, I asked her all kinds of things. I just wanted some idea of her thinking. You understand, I mean, how she thought. I was halfway impressed by her intelligence and also her education. In those days, she was one of those few whom we had attracted who had attended college. Then, right after that, one of the oldest sisters confided to me a personal problem that Sister Betty X was having. I was really surprised that when she had the chance, Sister Betty X had not mentioned anything to me about it. Every Muslim minister is always hearing the problems of young people whose parents have ostracized them for becoming Muslims. Well, when Sister Betty X told her foster parents who were financing her education that she was a Muslim, they gave her a choice: leave the Muslims or they'd cut off her nursing school. It was right near the end of her term, but she was hanging on to Islam. She began taking babysitting jobs for some of the doctors who lived on the grounds of the hospital where she was training. In my position, I would never have made any move without thinking how it would affect the Nation of Islam organization as a whole. I got to turning it over in my mind. What would happen if I just should happen sometime to think about getting married to somebody? For instance, Sister Betty X. Although it could be any sister in any temple, but Sister Betty X, for instance, would just happen to be the right height for somebody of my height, and also the right age. I was so shocked at myself when I realized what I was thinking. I quit going anywhere near Sister Betty X or anywhere I knew she would be. If she came into our restaurant and I was there, I went out somewhere. I was glad I knew that she had no idea what I'd been thinking about. My not talking to her wouldn't give her any reason to think anything, since there had never been one personal word spoken between us, even if she had thought anything. I studied about if I just should happen to say something to her, what would her position be? Because she wasn't going to get any chance to embarrass me. I had heard too many women bragging, "I told that chump, get lost." I had too much experience of the kind to make a man very cautious. I wasn't about to say any of that romance stuff that Hollywood and television had filled women's heads with. If I was going to do something, I was going to do it directly. And anything I was going to do my way. And because I wanted to do it, not because I saw somebody do it or read about it in a book or saw it in a moving picture somewhere. I told Mr. Muhammad when I visited him in Chicago that month that I was thinking about a very serious step. He smiled when he heard what it was. I told him I was just thinking about it, that was all. Mr. Muhammad said that he'd like to meet this sister. The nation by this time was financially able to bear the expenses so that instructor sisters from different temples could be sent to Chicago to attend the headquarters Temple 2 women's classes, and while there, to meet the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in person. Sister Betty X, of course, knew all about this, so there was no reason for her to think anything of it when it was arranged for her to go to Chicago. And like all visiting instructor sisters, she was the house guest of the messenger and Sister Clara Muhammad. Mr. Muhammad told me that he thought Sister Betty X was a fine sister. If you're thinking about doing a thing, you ought to make up your mind if you're going to do it or not do it. One Sunday night after the Temple 7 meeting, I drove my car out in the Garden State Parkway. I was on my way to visit my brother Wilfred in Detroit. Wilfred, the year before, in 1957, had been made the minister of Detroit's Temple Number 1. I hadn't seen him or any of my family in a good while. It was about 10 in the morning when I got inside Detroit. Getting gas at a filling station, I just went to their payphone on a wall. I telephoned Sister Betty X. I had to get information to get the number of the nurse's residence at this hospital. Most numbers I memorized, but I had always made it some point never to memorize her number. Somebody got her to the phone finally. She said, "Oh, hello, Brother Minister." I just said it to her direct. "Look, do you want to get married?" Naturally, she acted all surprised and shocked. The more I have thought about it, to this day, I believe she was always putting on an act, because women know. They know. She said, just like I knew she would, "Yes." Then I said, "Well, I don't have a whole lot of time. She better catch a plane to Detroit." So she grabbed a plane. I met her foster parents who lived in Detroit. They had made up by this time. They were very friendly and happily surprised. At least, they acted that way. Then I introduced Sister Betty X at my oldest brother Wilfred's house. I had already asked him where people could get married with...
Okay, so that's enough of that. Now, there's a few takeaways from what we heard here. One, was that he seemed to have abstained for 10 years. So notice how much he's accomplished in that 10 years. I'm pretty sure they had game dudes back then, as they do now, that, probably would have called him bitch broke, incel, etc., etc., etc. All the bullshit. Even though it was clear that Detroit Red did very well with the ladies, this would be a problem. He accomplished a lot not focusing on women. He put the nation, his mission, his purpose above that. And he achieved a different form of greatness. Now, it wasn't by accident that he did this. This was to avoid a nature that is not becoming of man. A nature that is not beneficial to men. He talked about how talkative they were, how destructive they can be. He even mentioned how they would constantly go back and complain about how harsh he was when talking about women and the different roles. Wow. I can definitely relate to that. It seems like I am Malcolm X. But let's play it again. And this time I will do my pauses and I will give my commentary during.
Buttonholing brothers and sisters on the street, speaking to rapt audiences, Malcolm X brought scores of new members to New York's Temple 7. He also established new temples in Hartford and Atlanta, and spurred more growth in the Philadelphia, Boston, and Springfield, Massachusetts temples. He spent so much time traveling that the nation provided him with a car. His life became one of constant motion, lecturing, teaching, spreading the word of Islam. He brought thousands of new members into the fold, and his words touched many thousands more. He was a dynamo, charismatic, dedicated, articulate, and as noted by increasing numbers of Muslim sisters, single.
Okay, let's stop right there. He would represent in his community, in his religious community, what they would consider a high value man. It's very upsetting to see a high value man single. They would rather see him with somebody who's not them than to be single, because they don't want this belief to spread. They don't want to live in a world where high value men abstain or find comfort in other women. So the way it's written is that they see this as a problem, like he's single.
I had always been very careful to stay completely clear of any personal closeness with any of the Muslim sisters. My total commitment to Islam demanded having no interest, especially I felt no women. In almost every temple, at least one single sister had let out some broad hint that she thought I needed a wife, so I always made it clear that marriage had no interest for me.
So he had opportunities. Sisters would come up to him and say, I think you need a wife. And he would politely reject them.
Whatsoever. I was too busy. Every month when I went to Chicago, I would find that some sister had written complaining to Mr. Muhammad that I had talked so hard against women when I taught our special classes about the different natures of the two sexes.
Oh, who does that sound like? Speaking hard against women when talking about the different natures of the two sexes. Who does that sound like? First of all, the realization that the natures of the two sexes are different is red pill. He is definitely red pill. There's no mistake about this. But let's continue.
Now, Islam has very strict laws and teachings about women. The core of them being that the true nature of a man is to be strong, and a woman's true nature is to be weak. And while a man must at all times respect his woman, at the same time he needs to understand that he must control her if he expects to get her respect.
Absolutely. Very red pill this is. This is extremely red pill. His nature is to be strong, hers is to be weak. When we have these strong Black women in our community, it goes against the very nature of femininity. And if a person being harsh would say that these women are behaving in an unfeminine manner, he would be accurate by Islamic definition of femininity, which is far more ancient than modern feminism.
But in those days, I had my own personal reasons. I wouldn't have considered it possible for me to love any woman. I had too much experience that women were only tricky, deceitful, untrustworthy flesh.
Oh my. And keep in mind that this is supposed to be like in the nation, you know, where all the sisters dressed up in hijabs and shit like that, and, you know, and at least appeared to be great wives. Inside there, he discovered something about their nature. This is Malcolm X. Hold on, I'm going to rewind that so y'all can hear it again.
Sister had let out some broad hint that she thought I needed a wife, so I always made it clear that marriage had no interest for me whatsoever. I was too busy. Every month when I went to Chicago, I would find that some sister had written complaining to Mr. Muhammad that I had talked so hard against women when I taught our special classes about the different natures of the two sexes. Now, Islam has very strict laws and teachings about women. The core of them being that the true nature of a man is to be strong, and a woman's true nature is to be weak. And while a man must at all times respect his woman, at the same time he needs to understand that he must control her if he expects to get her respect. But in those days, I had my own personal reasons. I wouldn't have considered it possible for me to love any woman. I had too much experience that women were only tricky, deceitful, untrustworthy flesh.
Tricky, deceitful, untrustworthy flesh. How red pill is this? How red pill is this? Malcolm was red pill. He still protected his woman, though. In return, he got sista's respect. Who was his woman? Who was his woman? Of course, he protected Betty, Sister Betty X. Whose woman are you, Jessica? Who can you say I belong to, Jessica? If you are unprotected, it's because you don't have a protector. But yes, he protected his women. However, Black women suffered while he was alive. Would it be right to say that he didn't protect them? Now, what did he protect his individual woman from? Y'all see the shaming tactic that she's attempting to use? No. He got sister's respect, and we don't even know if he got the sister's respect. It seems as though they lusted after him, as they did before he found the nation, and as they do after, largely because he's 6'4", light skin, red hair, handsome, articulate, and intelligent. So don't try to give ultimatums. Once again, that is the tricky, deceitful nature that Brother X is speaking of right now. I'm going to play that one more time because that is the core of what is red pill about him. Hold on. Let's start from there.
Now, Islam has very strict laws and teachings about women. The core of them being that the true nature of a man is to be strong, and a woman's true nature is to be weak. And while a man must at all times respect his woman, at the same time he needs to understand that he must control her if he expects to get her respect. But in those days, I had my own personal reasons. I wouldn't have considered it possible for me to love any woman. I had too much experience that women were only tricky, deceitful, untrustworthy flesh.
I am Malcolm X. Oh, Jessica, you don't like that part. While you were trying to trick me. Tricky, deceitful, untrustworthy flesh. All right, let's continue.
Seen too many men ruined, or at least tied down, or in some other way messed up by women. Women talk too much. To tell a woman not to talk was like telling Jesse James not to carry a gun, or telling a hen not to cackle. Can you imagine Jesse James without a gun, or a hen that didn't cackle? And for anyone in any kind of leadership,
talk too damn much.
Position such as I was, the worst thing in the world that he could have was the wrong woman. Even Samson, the world's strongest man, was destroyed by the woman who slept in his arms. She was the one whose words hurt him. Anyway, it had been 10 years since I thought anything about any mistress, I guess. And as a minister now,
it's been 10 years since he even thought about it. You see, people don't talk about this side of Malcolm X. How he went, I guess you could call it MGTOW monk for 10 years and focused on his purpose. What if a man was to do that right now? What if a man was to not focus on finding a mistress and focus on building the community right now, and he abstained for 10 years? What would they say about him? Would they call him an incel? Would they call him a bitch broke? Would they just devalue everything he says and just chalk it up to you don't have no game because you don't get no bitches? Would they do that? It seems likely. It seems likely that his message would go completely unheard unless he had a woman in his bed, any woman. Which means that the reason why we lack black leaders is because they need a woman for validation for the black men to listen to them. And then they find a woman and it turns out that she ruins him like Delilah did. And there you go. No more black leaders.
I was thinking even less about getting any wife. And Mr. Muhammad himself encouraged me to stay single. This sister, well, in 1956, she joined Temple 7. I just noticed her. Not with the slightest interest, you understand. For about the next year, I just noticed her. You know, she never would have dreamed I was even thinking about her. In fact, probably you couldn't have convinced her I even knew her name. It was Sister Betty X. She was tall, brown skin, darker than I was, and she had brown eyes. I knew she was a native of Detroit and that she had been a student at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, an education major. She was in New York in one of the big hospitals' school of nursing. She lectured to the Muslim girls in women's classes on hygiene and medical facts. One day, I thought it would help the women's classes if I took her, just because she happened to be an instructor, to the Museum of Natural History. I wanted to show her some museum displays having to do with the tree of evolution that would help her in her lectures. I could show her proofs of Mr. Muhammad's teachings of such things as that the filthy pig is only a large rodent. The pig is a graft between a rat, a cat, and a dog, Mr. Muhammad taught us. When I mentioned my idea to Sister Betty X, I made it very clear that it was just to help her lectures to her sisters. I had even convinced myself that this was the only reason. Then, by the time of the afternoon I said we would go, well, I telephoned her. I told her I had to cancel the trip, that something important had come up. She said, "Well, you sure waited long enough to tell me, Brother Minister. I was just ready to walk out the door." So I told her, "Well, all right, just come on then. I'd make it somehow." But I wasn't going to have much time. While we were down there, offhandedly, I asked her all kinds of things. I just wanted some idea of her thinking. You understand, I mean, how she thought. I was halfway impressed by her intelligence and also her education. In those days, she was one of those few whom we had attracted who had attended college. Then, right after that.
Okay. So basically the message of the Nation of Islam, men strong, women weak, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, didn't apply to the educated woman. It wasn't well received by that group. Now, Malcolm was obviously the alpha of his surroundings. And because she was the one that got his notice, this sent a very interesting message to the Black female population. Because, Martin Luther King's wife was also educated. They assumed that the key to a man's heart is education. What does she have that I don't have? And their answer, education. At least the girls of the time thought that. But she has other qualities in addition to that you should learn from. That's why she teaches courses on health, hygiene, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
One of the oldest sisters confided to me a personal problem that Sister Betty X was having. I was really surprised that when she had the chance, Sister Betty X had not mentioned anything to me about it. Every Muslim minister is always hearing the problems of young people whose parents have ostracized them for becoming Muslims. Well, when Sister Betty X told her foster parents who were financing her education that she was a Muslim, they gave her a choice: leave the Muslims or they'd cut off her nursing school. It was right near the end of her term, but she was hanging on to Islam. She began taking babysitting jobs for some of the doctors who lived on the grounds of the hospital where she was training. In my position, I would never have made any move without thinking how it would affect the Nation of Islam organization as a whole. I got to turning it over in my mind. What would happen if I just should happen sometime to think about getting married to somebody? For instance, Sister Betty X. Although it could be any sister in any temple, but Sister Betty X, for instance, just happened to be the right height for somebody of my height, and also the right age. I was so shocked at myself when I realized what I was thinking. I quit going anywhere near Sister Betty X or anywhere I knew she would be. If she came into...
Oh, and by the way, just like the Baptist church, even back then, just by the way it's written, it does appear as though women were going there looking for penis.
To our restaurant and I was there, I went out somewhere. I was glad I knew that she had no idea what I'd been thinking about. My not talking to her wouldn't give her any reason to think anything, since there had never been one personal word spoken between us, even if she had thought anything. I studied about if I just should happen to say something to her, what would her position be? Because she wasn't going to get any chance to embarrass me. I had heard too many women bragging, "I told that chump, get lost."
I have heard too many women bragging, "I told that chump, get lost." See, this is that humble bragging that I often speak against. You know, like I had to beat him off with a stick, basically building themselves up in the eyes of others while at the same time destroying him, making him appear thirsty while at the same time making yourself appear irresistible. You know, the type of woman who would seduce a guy, try to get him to come and do or show interest in you, and then they say, oh my God, why are you so thirsty? And then tell all her friends, you know, just basically just shattering this guy's reputation. To avoid that, Malcolm just simply abstained.
I had too much experience of the kind to make a man very cautious. I wasn't about to say any of that romance stuff that Hollywood and television had filled women's heads with. If I was going to do something, I was going to do it directly. And anything I was going to do my way. And because I wanted to do it, not because I saw somebody do it or read about it in a book or saw it in a moving picture somewhere. I told Mr. Muhammad when I visited him in Chicago that month that I was thinking about a very serious step. He smiled when he heard what it was. I told him I was just thinking about it, that was all. Mr. Muhammad said that he'd like to meet this sister. The nation by this time was financially able to bear the expenses so that instructor sisters from different temples could be sent to Chicago to attend the headquarters Temple 2 women's classes and, while there, to meet the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in person. Sister Betty X, of course, knew all about this, so there was no reason for her to think anything of it when it was arranged for her to go to Chicago. And like all visiting instructor sisters, she was the house guest of the messenger and Sister Clara Muhammad. Mr. Muhammad told me that he thought Sister Betty X was a fine sister. If you're thinking about doing a thing, you ought to make up your mind if you're going to do it or not do it. One Sunday night after the Temple 7 meeting, I drove my car out in the Garden State Parkway. I was on my way to visit my brother Wilfred in Detroit. Wilfred, the year before, in 1957, had been made the minister of Detroit's Temple Number 1. I hadn't seen him or any of my family in a good while. It was about 10 in the morning when I got inside Detroit. Getting gas at a filling station, I just went to their payphone on a wall. I telephoned Sister Betty X. I had to get information to get the number of the nurse's residence at this hospital. Most numbers I memorized, but I had always made it some point never to memorize her number. Somebody got her to the phone finally. She said, "Oh, hello, Brother Minister." I just said it to her direct. "Look, do you want to get married?" Naturally, she acted all surprised and shocked. The more I have thought about it, to this day, I believe she was always putting on an act, because women know. They know. She said, just like I knew she would, "Yes." Then I said, "Well, I don't have a whole lot of time. She better catch a plane to Detroit." So she grabbed a plane. I met her foster parents who lived in Detroit. They had made up by this time.
Okay, so that's that. Now, I do want to point out that after he married Sister Betty, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, his views, of course, switched a little bit, or I should say a lot. Now, everything he was saying that he felt before he met Sister Betty came up later. And what do I mean by that? Later in life, when he said, about Elijah Muhammad and his dealings with women, he didn't think back to the deceitful, tricky nature of them. In fact, he's quoted for saying later in life that these women told me from their own mouth. But in your own mind, you did describe them as, and I'm not saying, Elijah Muhammad, and this isn't me just shitting on the religion or those devout Muslims, but, whether it happened or it didn't happen, he went solely off of their word, the word of a group of people who he described as tricky, deceitful, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So his views definitely changed, and it probably wasn't to his direct benefit or even the benefit of the Nation of Islam that it had.
This is an introspection, right?
What do you mean?
Meaning that he's sort of recalling, he's recanting.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is the
Yeah,
recorded audiobook
right,
with him and Alex Haley. Yeah,
right. So he's recanting. So yeah, he's speaking sort of like an introspect or in hindsight, right? Because if you look at the trajectory of where Malcolm went with his works,
hmm
it did ultimately transcend the nation,
right,
right? So yeah, when you look at ultimately where the trajectory of his works took him, when you when he if he were to speak in hindsight, much as what is going on here in this audio playback here, yeah, you could see where he had feelings initially, and then as things transgressed, you know, things may have changed a bit.
right. So, do you think that he kept his beliefs, or in his later days, or do you think like what's your thoughts on that?
I think they evolved.
Okay.
I think they evolved. I think what the thing about Malcolm was is that there were so many other people that did not look and resemble him, that bought into him, right? That when he went abroad, he was actually taught messages that he could then bring back and still communicate as Malcolm to a broader group of people. And I think what happened is that he started to outgrow a lot of people in the process.
Hmm. Do you think? Do you find it interesting how accurate what he was saying and doing um, mirrors what we say here in the manosphere and do, as far as being called hard on women, being called, just for pointing out the different natures. It's the nature of one to lead, the other to follow, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That part I found interesting. And when he talked about the nature of women, it was definitely not in a favorable way. And he did mention that, they can be your downfall, spreading scandal and just by talking. We all know what happened to me. So,
Right.
that's most certainly not far from the truth.
That's basically a case study.
Right.
Yeah.
So all of this is it's really prophetic, like it shows that some things never really change.
I mean, that's that. What's that old axiom or that old saying? The more things change, the more they remain the same. Right. See, so like in different epochs or different eras, different decades, different generations, you're still kind of met with the same shit. Like, I mean, I think, even human nature in terms of men and women is even spoken about in the Bible and shit. And it's not much of a departure from the same nature that you see displayed today.
Mhm.
It's just modern.
Concrete Rose, I appreciate you. You say this is a very interesting stream. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
You also say Malcolm X. Keep in mind, Malcolm X was a pimp from the streets. Pimps are typically red pill. Yeah, you definitely have to have a understanding of both male and female natures in order to be pimps, because you're selling a concept to women and selling a product to men. So you definitely have to be in tune with the nature of both.
Well, I was gonna say it will also explain why, he received some of like he was speaking in that audio there, and I guess some were going to Minister Muhammad, or Muhammad. They were going to Minister Muhammad, and they were basically saying to him that Malcolm's approach was a bit cold, I guess.
right.
Right, which would be reflective of his understanding of that. However, it's reflected in his purpose, though. So he's very no nonsense.
Well, I think it's uncompromising as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
He's
very much
basically
so.
like, if I were to sugarcoat it, then that means that I am attempting to meet you on your level when you should be attempting to come to mine.
Right,
I'm not going to give it to you the way you want it because as a leader, I will give it to you as the way I feel that you should have it.
right. What does Concrete Rose mean by no romance?
She was saying that the way he proposed. And actually, they had that proposal on the movie because I've seen the movie before I
I,
read the book.
yeah, it kind of happened that way. I think in the movie he did it over the phone or something like that.
Yeah, and also in the
Yeah,
book.
yeah.
But here it explains why. And he didn't. He basically was saying that he didn't want to give her a chance to say no.
You know what's funny? What he also said was he purposely didn't remember her number, even though he purposely remembered all other numbers.
Hmm.
He said this. He was like, he recalls all other phone numbers, but he purposely decided not to remember hers
Right.
because he's like, yo, I'm not even about to go down that road.
And that's the thing. Both Detroit Red and Malcolm X, they had a profound understanding of women. And it comes from being both handsome and intelligent. You will gather that understanding because you're constantly in their presence. So and he had a lot of sisters as well. So I get why he was the two different things. One, when he was Detroit Red, he just gave into their nature and benefited from it. He surrendered himself to the nature of women.
Is that what romance is?
Well, yes, it's definitely compromising. I mean, you understand
Hmm.
I mean, romance really means to be Roman like, to be Roman s, um,
Hmm.
which at the time that the linguistics came out was a big thing. I guess everybody in Europe wanted a Roman. You know, like
Yeah.
when a woman say he's romantic, they're basically saying he is like a Roman.
He's Roman like.
Yeah, which is the ultimate insult to every non-Roman who heard
I
that word.
mean,
Like,
yeah, right.
how
It's
swirling
it's,
is
it's
that? How would you like to be an Englishman and have somebody say, "Oh, you're so romantic"? Ain't that a bit like
or it's like women openly professing a preference for the BBC or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's something like that. So yeah, I guess Italians were the BBC of the time
Yeah.
that this came out, but that's what romance is. But I think what Concrete Rose was saying, and you're free to come up, was
The
that
the BIR, the big Italian romantic.
yeah, exactly. So but no, romance, yes, it's basically a understanding of what the opposite sex wants and giving it to them. So it's not that it's a bad thing. I wouldn't even call it simping or anything. I just that's what it is. Could he have sugarcoated it? Maybe down on one knee and shit like that. Yeah, but I mean, look at how he viewed woman's nature. Like something like that
Well,
can
I
be
was gonna
against.
say it's
Yeah,
kind of like if you sort of know it to be, what do you say, deceitful and I put it in the chat. He said something and deceitful,
yeah,
tricky and deceitful, or
yeah,
something like
yeah.
that.
Tricky, deceitful, treacherous. Yeah, all the same thing. They're synonymous with each other. But yeah,
I
not to be
mean,
trusted. Yeah,
yeah, I think, God, and I mean, I hate to sound so nihilistic about this, but I mean, it's sort of like if you have just a sort of like a base understanding that that's the case, then you're really not going to break your back if you find one that is worth a damn. You're probably going to do what he did. Just, hey, look, you want to get married? You're worth a damn. All right.
yeah. Hey, look it. Let's get married. This is pretty much how he came.
Like what the fuck? I mean,
Well, and also the more romantic, had she said no to that, then it's no big deal. He could just, hey,
yeah, it's kind of like no water on water on the bridge, right?
yeah, exactly. I mean, he won't lose face to,
Yeah, but if you did
to
like a
his,
whole public display
exactly,
on
exactly.
the knee in the fucking courtyard and everybody pulls out Well, they don't have the cell phones back then. So leave that out. So you do it in the courtyard. Everybody turns around and looks, and then it's just like, no.
Exactly. And believe it or not, and this is a part of woman's nature that he definitely understood. There is a certain thrill of that because basically it puts you, at least temporarily, in a position above the person that you are rejecting. So, and we could take the movie Coming to America, for example.
Yeah.
You want to know the best, you want to know the one thing that's better than, accepting a marriage proposal from the Princess Zamunda? Not accepting a marriage proposal from the Princess Zamunda.
I mean, holy shit. Do you realize what kind of ovaries you can claim to have?
Exactly.
I turned down a damn marriage proposal from a fucking prince.
Exactly.
Okay? Of his own country. And trust me when I tell you this, the man has got his own money.
Exactly. He tried to buy me earrings and I just threw it back at him.
I was like, take these
and
$50,000 earrings back.
And then he came begging on the train, on a graffiti, urine stained, New York subway train, begging me to marry him. And then he tried to renounce his throne, and I just threw it.
I was just like, boy, you are doing too much right now.
Exactly. God, you thirsty.
But wait, it's funny that you say this, and then I'm reading this comment right here. Women expect men to woo them. Holy fucking shit. You can't. I mean, good God. I mean, it's called serendipity. I mean, the way things flow and the way they work, right? You expect men to woo you, and we just give you a perfect example. We're fucking prince from a country.
Well, no, that came after. That came after the we talked about. We gave the example, but yeah, I mean, we get it that's what.
But I'm saying it's still apropos, right? Because we're sitting here saying that. Look at what he did to woo her. He's a fucking prince, bro.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm like, really? Okay. I mean, yeah, you expect it, but I mean, think about what your expectations are versus what it is that a man can potentially be met with, and somehow you're asking men to capitulate to this when you do a logical deduction, and we even look at a scenario where you got a fucking prince, for crying out loud. Like on a few different occasions, she's like, no.
Exactly. And she ran away. He ran after her. The whole thing was just.
And this is what they expect, though. It's like, you can read it right here. It's just like, oh my God. Wow.
Yeah.
Grow up, little girl. Grow up.
I mean, and you got, and what they don't consider is, and what he wasn't considering was how it looked to Zamundans. Like, it was a big thing to everybody. It was a big thing to her, but how does this look to a Zamundan woman to know that your prince got shot down by a Queens, New York rando?
Let me tell you something. If I'm the prince of the neighboring country, I'm plotting a takeover.
No, I mean, or a mutiny. Like, I mean, a person should.
I'm just like, that nigga over there is a whole simp and a half, bro. Let's go get that. Let's go get that dough.
Well, the moment, what's his name, Jaffe Joffer dies, then that's the next step.
That's what I mean. It's just like, like when the old man kills over dude, it's on.
Right.
Run your kingdom, homie.
And so he didn't want to risk the nation having the same egg on his face that that it eventually did, at least temporarily, with Elijah Muhammad. He didn't want to risk that type of scandal, so he just did it in the least, unfortunately, Concrete Rose, the least romantic way possible. And was like, "Would you marry me?" No. Okay, bye. Like, if she said that, he can't say, like, "Yeah, I asked her." She said no, so it's no big deal.
You know what? Listen, I think if Hakeem would have literally red pilled the shit out of her. Look, bitch. I don't know if you know this or not. I'm just over here looking for some American pussy. Yeah.
So my royal oats.
She would have been, man, look, she'd have been like, yo, this nigga's way more alpha than Daryl. This nigga's a Jerry curl model. Okay, this nigga over here is a whole prince looking for some Ados pussy.
And you know what's funny? Because she shot down Daryl too. Now that I think about it.
I'm just saying, bro. Like we're talking about that tricky, fucking weird ass nature of theirs, dude. It was on full display, bro.
Yeah, it's duplicitous. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because she shot down Daryl too. You know, who she's been with for quite some time on some Jerry.
Who the fuck did she end up marrying?
She married Hakeem.
That's what I mean.
I'm just saying they can't sometimes Concrete Rose and people listening, sometimes sisters just can't, you know, there is a certain thrill from rejecting somebody. And the better the man is you reject, the more you feel about yourself.
It's the chase.
Yeah. Like my homeboy, right? Jawline nigga, right? He was with this chick and she keep bringing up that because she used to work for a radio station, right? So she set up like posters and crap like that for the concerts and all that good stuff, right? And passed out t-shirts. So she got to meet some celebrities from time to time. And I think it was Usher at the time. I forget who exactly it was. But he had hit on her. And she left, and you know, years later, she would never let my boy forget that she shot down a famous millionaire. They just live off that. They live off of it. It's like, okay, Usher wanted to hit it, big deal. Like, but they just can't. They, you know, the only thing better than being with a what's it called? Not select, high value man is shooting down a high value man and holding it over the next man's head.
I mean, as if it means something though.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, well, I'm like, why the fuck didn't you do it?
True.
Yeah, why didn't you do it? Well, what do you, huh? So you're telling me, you know, I could have fucked Usher. Okay. Why didn't you?
Yeah. They just like that rejecting the high.
Well, because I figured that there would be one day where I would get what is you and then I could hold it over your head. Huh?
Okay, Concrete Rose. Listen, Hakeem did lie to her about everything except his name. All right, listen. All the tricky crap that she did. She hooked him up with her sister. Now let's talk about how she did that. Let's start there. Let's talk about how she did that.
Well, wait a minute. Wait, before you go there. Well, wait. She fucking lied. Whoa. See, we're not going to do this. GameChanger, I thought we already broke this movie down.
Yeah, we did a breakdown. Yeah,
we already did a breakdown of this movie. No.
It's in my archive. Yeah, we
that's what I'm saying. She lied.
Yeah.
Now, remember, she was talking all the shit about how she didn't give a shit about the money and all that kind of shit, right? But it ultimately did factor in. So she lied and he lied.
I gave a thorough breakdown.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. No, I don't need to hear all that shit. And she also played the nigga she was with. So hypergamy came into play here too. Concrete Rose, we already did a breakdown of this movie.
Well, let me play a clip from another movie.
Okay.
This one is called, and it's on Netflix right now. I did a breakdown on this too. I think I did on my other channel. This one is called Seriously Single. Listen at this.
Firstly, I want to thank you all for joining us here today. Janelle and I have been through a lot as a couple. And having you all here to celebrate with us today means so much. We've had a few bumps on the road. So right now I just want to make sure that we never lose each other again.
Oh shit! Everyone take out your phones because if we miss this, she's going to kill us.
All right, let me share screens for a second.
What just happened there?
No, I just want y'all to see This is him on his knee about to propose.
Oh shit.
Let's see what happens.
Oh God.
You know, madam, you fight for love even when it seems impossible. You take care of me, you make me a better man. And I hope you keep doing that for the rest of our lives.
They live for this shit.
Do you marry me?
That's her mother. And she runs away.
Put your phones away. Put your phones away.
This is.
Yep. Yep.
And scene.
Yep, exactly. So she spent the first 2 hours of the movie chasing this dude down. She finally got him on one knee in front of everybody. He flew his parents in. You know, this took place in South Africa. He flew his parents in and all that good shit and blah 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 blah. And she finally gets him down on one knee and she does this shit.
Jesus Christ.
He should have did the Malcolm X.
Oh God.
See, Cocker, sometimes you just don't want to give them a chance to do that because some women just can't turn it down. You know. Like they could turn down the opportunity to shoot somebody down over a payphone and he just never see you again.
Yeah, I mean,
but to do it like this, that's just too interesting.
I mean, you know, just respect his parents' time. I mean, he fucking flew him in for crying out loud.
Or just say yes, and then like later on, when
this is what I mean. Just fucking respect his parents' time. Show some maturity for crying out loud. Show up, little girl.
Right.
Come on.
Exactly.
We're adults here, supposedly.
So yeah, that's why he took the non-romantic approach. So he didn't wind up looking like this dude. He was once respected by his peers and family.
Now he is immortalized on a fucking Netflix series.
Yeah, exactly. Like you, that dude.
You are that motherfucker.
And you know how every now and again you play the dozens? You know, like you say something, you know, about somebody.
Yeah, I was doing that with Aegon earlier today.
Yeah, you just throwing shots out there. That's like the ultimate. Hey, remember that time you asked that chick to marry you and she said no, or she just walked away?
You remember that shit?
Yeah, you remember that, right?
Remember that? Remember when this nigga did that shit?
Exactly. And what if he was that dude that always had the upper hand in the dozens? Because this is a successful brother, and you know he's in shape, and he has, you know, he crosses his T's and dot his I's. So you know it's not much you can attack. But now everybody that's been waiting to now this happened.
Not so jawline today, now are we?
Exactly. How's that jawline treating you, huh?
How's that jaw, buddy?
So this is why, you know, Malcolm didn't want to do it. Because then the Muslims would be like, yeah, you wasn't 6'4" when you was down on one knee begging Betty.
The nigga, you was about 3'8".
Exactly. And remember, she turned your ass down. So yeah, he did the right thing. But yeah, back to Malcolm though. It's just amazing. It's just amazing how the red pill principles, the ideologies and everything really applied back then. Like it really applied back then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything, you know, different in what he was saying versus what's largely said today in red pill conversations. Let's just call it. The only difference is the vernacular and the time in which the conversation is being had. That's about it.
And it's very interesting also that that he understood that he couldn't get the things he wanted done if he surrendered to their nation, their nature, because that's what a pimp is someone who surrenders to their nature.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he does it with the understanding that there's no future in it, and you're not going to build a society. If anything, you're going to destroy it. But you are a servant of their nature. So when he was destroying society and destroying communities, he was Detroit Red. When he was building one, he was Malcolm X. And the things that it took to be Malcolm X was what he described. I didn't know about the 10 years until I read it. And that's something that they don't really put in the movies or anything like that. You know, that's something that they don't really talk about.
Yeah, well, you go 10 years, Monk. You're gonna be far removed from some pimp shit at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're literally gonna be some fucking, you know, yogi, like floating on a goddamn mat or some shit.
Right. And to the women who fear high value men, because believe it or not, they won't admit it, but many women do. To the women who fear high value men, this is why. Because he does have such discipline. How do you control a man who is capable of abstaining for 10 years?
Well, that was the whole thing, man. You know, that's already been clearly determined. And it's sort of like, I don't know. It's weird. That's why, you know, I've said this maybe 2 or 3 times tonight during this conversation, like little girl, grow up, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, grow the fuck up. It's like a man is not for you to control. Like as soon as you can grow up and become a mature adult woman and understand that, the better off you'd be, because then it would fucking make sense to you. But if you're not there yet, then I suppose you would probably think to try to do all types of things to try to undermine somebody who's actually trying to, you know, a man who's trying to be fucking productive in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You got to realize, dude, it's like, you know, it's logical deduction. So the only reason why you would do something like that is immaturity of mind. That's one of the core things that I could kind of deduce it to.
Well, I mean, basically, he was saying that their nature requires that they're controlled. You know, the difference in nature requires that one is in control of the situation and the other isn't. And that's not anything different than what I say. I mean, yeah, I make it a little more colorful. Like you said, the language is different. You know,
that's what I mean. The language is largely different, but
right.
A lot of guys actually say that type of stuff, you know, today.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and in my opinion, not enough. Now, you know, this isn't the utopian Black society that we often talk about during those generations. You know, people, and that's another thing I want to get into. People tend to romanticize the Black relationships of the time, but really there was a lot of problems.
Well, this is no better case in point right here.
Right, exactly.
Listen to what Malcolm X is saying about women specifically. Jesus Christ.
Right. Right. So, I mean, because he wasn't a, you know, quote unquote young man at the time. Like he wasn't in his early 20s or anything. He had
already kind of gone through his shit.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Like this is near the end.
Pimping and prison and everything goddamn thing else, and then Nation Islam, and you know, and then more of a transcendent message, and yeah, he's been through a lot, man.
Exactly. To come to this point.
Right.
So, and you know, part of a lot of what he's been through was his experience with women. You know, that's part of it. So the nature has always been there.
Didn't that kind of send him into this? The pimping shit, right?
Well, prison, but I mean, the pimping shit led to prison. Absolutely.
That's what I mean. Didn't that kind of send him into this?
Well, I mean, so surrendering yourself to the nature of women ultimately is going to lead you to prison or dead. I mean, there isn't another way around it.
Jesus Christ.
No, there isn't. Like, I mean, like
I'm just laughing like fuck. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always the same story. Like, and it's a very bizarre story, particularly for pimps. And I have to say,
what about the gangbangers too? Because a lot of times, man, it's always like shootouts and dumb shit is happening over some chick.
A lot of the times, you mean like 100% of the times?
Yeah, I was trying to give like drug deals gone bad a fair shake here, but maybe not.
It's almost always indefinitely, for that reason.
Jesus
Like,
Christ.
like I can't think of another.
Like whether it's pimping or gang activity, it's all female driven. Jesus fucking Christ.
Well, I mean, both are people who become what women say that they want you to become.
This is true.
And remember, the woman that Malcolm X was pimping, or women, one of them, the chief one, kind of left him for a square dude in the end.
This is true.
And if you think that that's an anomaly or that's just like a one-off or something like that, you're greatly mistaken.
That is also true.
You're greatly mistaken. Or she had a change or a revelation. You are greatly mistaken. She planned on doing that since day one. She was just having fun with your life, with his life.
He's exciting.
She planned on retiring to what she retired to.
But in the meantime, excitement.
Exactly. It's unfortunate but true. And it happens far too many times. And the way society views pimps is very disturbing. I was watching this documentary on Netflix about pimps. And there was this guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who apparently was a pimp, but he owned a strip club.
Okay.
And they arrested like three of his white girls, right? And they both said, no, we're just dancing for him and blah, blah, blah. Like they just kept with the story. And then the camera went off of them. And then like months later in the trial, one of them came through and said that. Now, I'm assuming that during that time, it was all sorts of coercion, like if you do, because these were foreign women. If you don't say this, we'll deport you. But it seemed like they just kept coercing and badgering and badgering and badgering, for them to finally say, okay, he did it.
Yeah.
And then he got like double-digit years. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not like really a fan of what they're doing, but I mean, I am a fan of justice, and that's not justice. Like he basically just went away on her word of a coerced word.
Well, isn't that but that's what we're kind of talking about here. It's like, okay, well, this was all sort of female driven at the end of the day. Like this was all sort of hedged on them. So who actually held power here?
Right.
You know what I mean? So sometimes like guys got it so fucking twisted, man. It's a head scratcher, and sometimes you just got to let it be. But in these type of scenarios, I'm sitting there like, okay, well, so who's really in control here? If you're telling me that a chick can just kind of switch up and be like, oh yeah, he did it, and then all of a sudden you're doing double-digit years, who was the big boss, really?
Exactly. And that's in that term, what they call that is topping from the bottom. You're being topped from the bottom. And a lot of pimps are being topped from the bottom because basically they're in a situation where she has all the control. Now, she don't exercise that control initially, but she is paying the bills.
Well, you exercise it when it's time to cash out.
Yeah,
i.e., when the chick leaves the pimp and gets with the square. She has a plan for this shit, man.
Exactly. I'm looking for it. I don't remember the name. I don't remember the name of it. And I type in the word pimp in Netflix and it doesn't come up because Netflix don't keep stuff for long enough.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, it kind of it's rotational.
Yeah, because like there's some things that I just want to look back in, but let me Google it. Hold on. Maybe I can recognize it from the thing. All right, I Googled Netflix documentary about pimps. Let's see. Now I'll try to find it because it was a lot of. That wasn't the only person that they did that to. No, it wasn't a movie. What is it? Jude Ann. It's not a movie. It's a documentary. You know, it was real time, and it was very weird the way, you know. And once again, I'm not really like the biggest, you know, like pimp advocate or supporter or whatnot, but you know, I do believe in justice, and I swear, like the camera would turn off, like the women will be on his side, the camera will turn off, and then they just you know snitch on him. It's like what did y'all do when the camera went off? Did y'all offer like $100 or something? You know. So it's weird. But yeah, I appreciate you subscribing. Welcome to the channel.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. But so what I'm saying is that these are guys, both the gangsters and the pimps are really just guys who surrendered to the nature and became what they wanted them to be, as opposed to what he actually was. Like, you know, Malcolm X is what it is in his nature to be.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, that's what I mean. I think that's where he and himself sort of had a maturation moment where it's like, okay, I have the intellectual ability to understand the human condition.
right.
But what the fuck have I been doing with this ability this whole time? Wait a minute. He had a whole entire reassessment while he was in prison.
Exactly. While he was away from the influence of women.
Right.
You know, and you know, everything he was doing, the drugs, the lifestyle, the danger and stuff like that was destroying himself. You know, and it almost got him killed.
Sometimes that's what it takes. You know, that wake up moment.
But how many of them were killed is the question.
That's the thing. You know, oftentimes you have what they call like a brush with death.
Right.
Right. Others aren't so lucky.
Oh, and also incidentally, the scene with the chick from Girl 6.
Teresa Randall.
Yeah, Teresa Randall. I had a crush on her. But
I had a crush on her first, but go ahead.
Probably, you know. Y'all know how I like those lips. Y'all know how I like those plump lips.
Oh, wait, real quick. I have another crush.
Oh, really?
We got to do another live stream, dude.
Okay.
I have another one. Yeah,
okay.
I do. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no. So she wasn't a person and that didn't happen. That was something Spike threw in. At least it didn't happen in the book. That was just something that Spike threw in. So just a fun fact on that. Or maybe. But as far as I remember, because I haven't read it since college, but as far as I remember, she wasn't. And like I was looking for a character because I was real interested in that part. But you know, so as far as I remember, she wasn't, I should say. But I haven't read it recently, and it's a short read, so you know.
Pardon my sniffles, dude. I got allergy shit going on, man.
Yeah, no worries.
These air advisories out here.
No worries.
Hey, I'm gonna mute for a second. We'll grab my charger, okay?
Okay. Well, now y'all got me thinking. Like, what is the name of that documentary? Because I want to see it again. I do a review on that. But I'll be damned if I could find it. But yeah, it was on Netflix and it's a documentary, so I won't say much about that. Let's see. Blaze just saw a video essay about how 500 Days of Summer and Don John. Okay, I don't know what that is. I love. Oh, okay. So yeah, that's a personal message to somebody there. Oh, let's see what Black Mind says. Malcolm said that he didn't appreciate women believing TV and holding men to TV land standard. Oh, well, yeah, he did say that he wasn't going to do it like the movies. So even then he talks about media influence. and then bragging to each other how many men they tell to get lost. Exactly. And that's why he developed a strategy around his understanding of the nature. Because, it's hard to say I told him to get lost over the phone and he just made a 30-second effort to ask me. But it's more of a thrill. It's more of a satisfaction when he makes this big grand gesture and I still told him to F off. It's a real display of your strength that it's too tempting of an opportunity. To just see a strong man broken is too tempting. And that's just their nature to see a man broken on his knees, rejected, humiliated.
It's a realization of power, dude.
Exactly. It's like, it's too much. Like at that moment, they just have so much power. It's like, man, I have the power to destroy a powerful man.
Well, and what it is, it's also the most immature fucking display of it, because it's like anything else, One other thing that you could do that's similar in nature is spread a vicious fucking rumor about someone. Okay, it's kind of similar to that, right? I mean, the reality is, it's the modus operandi, or the reason why one would actually do it. That's the fucked up part. It's like, yeah, we all have the ability to do some horrible fucked up shit to anyone at any given moment, any day, anytime. But at this moment, to this specific person, in front of all of these people, yeah, I'm gonna do it right now.
Exactly.
Now, that's some fucked up shit.
It is. And it's not really power if you use it to do what he wanted you to do.
Well, it's
what everybody expected you to do.
It's the ability. It's literally the ability.
Yeah, power is the ability, but you don't know if they want to use it. It's like a big.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. What it is, it's the actualization of it. It's to actually, literally crush someone's fucking soul. It's to feel what that's like.
So, NBA fan, I don't know, and he didn't say, but he did go to advanced schools when he was young, so it probably was up there, given the circumstances. And also, Iceberg Slim's IQ was like 170 something, which is significantly higher than mine. So, a lot of well above the curve people became pimps, and their potential was, in my opinion, derailed by the community that they grew up in and the way that they were raised. But 170, that's it was like 170 something one, I think, but it was which I don't even know anybody.
Yeah, but the thing is that IQ quotient doesn't necessarily point to moral displacement. It also isn't wholly representative of all of the IQ spheres. It may only be representative of, say, like the intelligence quotient. But let's just say you're severely lacking in the fucking emotional quotient or the spiritual quotient or something like that. If you're lacking there, then you are completely fucking moral. And all you do is you just use your smarts. Just, amorally, like, oh, I don't care. I'm just smart enough to do it. So whoop-de-doo, I'm going to do it. I don't give a fuck how they feel.
Yeah. Well, those quotients didn't exist back then. Those are very new constructs.
Well, no, and that's what I mean. It's sort of like it gives us new insights as to why it is that maybe somebody that we would highly regard, that it was, highly intelligent, but just fucking morally displaced. And that was because, well, if we take, we dissect their intellect a little further, there was very little on the emotional quotient scale. There's very little there. And that, which would explain a lot.
Right. Vision has a question. It says, can somebody tell me about Malcolm X's parents? Were they Garveyous? The short answer is yes. The short answer is yes, and that's why it's believed that he was his father at least was killed for that belief, which was considered radical at the time.
Yeah, black industrialists.
Yeah, it's not even an industry. It's at least in my opinion. I mean, Marcus Garvey was an Exodus. You know.
Well, no, he was an industrialist though. So like the whole point was that he was about industrial infrastructure, like literally like creating it literally from the ground up. So if you go that route, then that means you're really trying to go the Black Wall Street route. You're trying to go all that. And we saw what white America largely thought about that type of spirit. Black people embodying at that time. They, air bombed, black financial centers and shit like that. And, and just did a whole lot of just heinous shit to really try to scare us out of pursuing that type of mindset, which, in my view, I think we capitulated a little too easily. I mean, I think if we were going to be just as aggressive and, about industry, we should have also been just as aggressive about deterring shit. So, things like reprisals and responses and deterrence, and, we just didn't have anything there. And that's just like, me looking back. I'm not criticizing or anything, but yeah, back then, if you were a black man and you were industrial minded, you were a threat, man.
True.
You were a fucking threat.
And see, that's the problem. What they want is a race of perpetual poverty.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's what slavery initially guaranteed. It guaranteed that, you and yours will be in poverty indefinitely. No matter, even if you do have the 175 IQ, you will still work in agriculture or maybe a machine shop or somewhere, but your family will never grow as a result of it. And by the way, anytime you hear these people who say, go back to Africa, they're saying that now, but they weren't saying that back then because they didn't want you to leave. Because if you left, then somebody else would have to pick the field, and let's face it, it would probably be them.
There was still work to be done.
Exactly. There was still work.
No mistake about it.
And we had a work ethic. So, and that's far less true now. But so now they actually do want your ass to leave.
Well, I was going to say, now it's like, we have no use for you.
Well, I mean, like, we're costing money. We're not generating it. Like,
H-1B, nigga.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so it says, yeah, Iceberg said he had a 175 IQ, but that can be possibly true. Yeah, that's like ridiculous because, well, that's like almost two standard deviations of Einstein. I think Einstein was like 150 or something like that. So he got a full ride to Tuskegee and broke out of prison a couple of times, but 175, yeah, that's like I say, I don't know anybody like that. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't ask everybody for their IQ, but I doubt that I've met anybody that's, that's that extreme. That's almost twice average. That's like unreal. I mean, put it like this. That would be the equivalent to finding somebody who is 7'1" or somewhere thereabouts.
I think I know somebody who might have been close to that.
That height or that IQ?
No. Well, maybe that height too, but that IQ. Yeah, he's a programmer.
I mean, MOT is up there, but 175 is like ridiculously high.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I'm talking about like to the point where he's like legit like socially awkward. But the reason why is because like the way the shit that he does with his brain. Like that's why I'm saying I think I know somebody might be scraping somewhere around there.
Okay. So you say that we should study it again. I mean, we all know that he was sold out by his people, but I mean, yeah, I guess it's worth studying. But the mentality that they wanted to shut him down really showed, how they viewed Black people at the time.
Right.
In fact, it was actually suggested by Lincoln of all people, that we leave, and perhaps it would have been for the best. He suggested South America at the time. You know,
You know what, man? I like California a little too much. No thanks.
but we weren't in California when that happened.
I
So
know, but I'm here now, so it would have sucked if we would have left.
yeah, yeah, they have a Cali there too.
Yeah, but it's not the same.
So I mean, that would have given us a head start on the SYSBM thing.
Wait, what?
Well, had
What?
we done it like in 1865 or Passport Bros?
Yeah, I was gonna say because well, that's why.
Yeah, no, my bad.
Yeah, well, I mean, because if you're talking about like go back, I'm thinking they aren't talking just dudes, right? They're talking about everybody.
Yeah, Lynn suggested that we just go, but he didn't suggest Africa. That didn't come into I forget, what was it, Monroe or something?
Damn, the nigga just said go. He didn't even suggest a place.
No, he suggested South America.
Oh, South America. Okay.
Yeah, he suggested South America, and he actually said that it was irresponsible to stay in a nation that hates you.
Jesus Christ.
He had a point. I mean, he had a point.
I mean, he could have also said chill with the fucking hate.
Oh, wait a minute. I got shut down.
What?
Yeah, I got shut down.
Are you for real, dude? What the fuck?
Oh, crap.
Wait a minute, dude. Wait, are you sure? I see the chat still going on.
The last thing I see, it says Liberia. Oh, no. Oh, okay. No, because it said 0 in the thing for a second. Testing. Can y'all hear me? Am I shut down?
Here. Yeah, man. What the fuck?
Okay, cool.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'm about to say, man, am I just high or something?
Well, no, I mean, the Malcolm X clip is old and it's not really copyrighted by anybody except the man himself. So, that, yeah, okay. All right. So, but what was I saying? No, Lincoln suggested South America. And he wasn't saying it out of hate or anything. He's just like, look, it's irresponsible to stay here. These people don't want you here.
That sounds like a sales pitch. Because I'm like, man, after I done went through all this shit, busted my ass, now I'm going somewhere else where I'm gonna go deal with the same shit. Now I go here to this new place, and they like, man, who the fuck are you? Oh, well, we were some people that came from a different place, but we over there and work, but they ain't really feeling us like that. So the president over there was like, man, why don't y'all just go to South America? Because, motherfuckers over here ain't really feeling you like that. But thanks for your work. And then you go over there, and then they're like, well, hold on, man. Like, who just told you y'all just came here because he told you to come here? Like, who the fuck, who from here told you to come here? And then you got this shit all over again.
Right. And then you have a new group of people that's on some, you took our jobs.
Well, this one I'm like, well, why didn't Lincoln tell his folks, like, why don't you get some fucking chill already? Well, why don't you guys leave, because people around here just don't like you, and it would be highly irresponsible of you guys to stick around in a place where people don't like you, Like, man, I'd have smacked the shit out of them. Fuck you. What are you talking about? These people are all benefiting off the shit we've been doing over the last some odd years. You gonna turn around and tell me to fucking leave because they don't like me? Man, I'd kick you in your nuts, dude.
Well, to be fair, whatchamacallit did leave. The juice left.
The juice.
Well, I'm not gonna say the actual word, but the German juice people.
Yeah.
They actually did leave, and they did recreate Israel. Now they were given a wampum to do it, and they were hated by the natives, as I'm sure we would have been. But yeah,
man, I don't know. I think that's just utterly insane to suggest that I should pack up and go to South America after all the shit I just did. Like literally, that dude deserves a smack with the back of the hand. Yes, the president. I'd have been like, dude, with all due respect, President Lincoln, smack.
Like, thanks for the emancipation. Well, Booth did. John Wilkes Booth was his name, I think. He gave him more than a smack in the back of the head.
Well, he went a little too far.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not suggesting what he did. I'm literally just talking about a backhand slap. Like just you ever watch like pick a like a mafia movie, Casino or whichever one, right? Godfather or whatever, 3, 4, Electric Boogaloo, and you'll find that there's a scene where there's always one of the strong arm dudes, one of the muscle guys, where they do this thing. It's called a mafia smack. It's like a smack. It's not like what Marco was doing, the pitch smack when he was hitting the chick on the butt and then hitting her with a temp gun. It's not that. This is an overhand smack downward on the face, and what it's to do, it's usually to say, "What the fuck are you doing?" It's not a punch or anything like that. It's just to wake you up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, one of those smacks.
Yeah.
One of those mafia smack.
I mean, it wasn't. I'm trying to find the quote so I'm not misquoting him, because that's the last thing I want to do is start a rumor and be wrong. But I heard it on a site somewhere. So but I did read in Douglas that he said that if he could keep the nation whole and keep slavery going, he would have.
Yeah.
And
but then you turn around and then you say, hey, well, look, now that I've emancipated you, the people hate you. Why don't you guys go to South America? Listen, mafia smack. Mafia smack. Bam.
It is a wasted labor force. I mean, if anything, from a purely practical standpoint, it's
also pretty fucking insulting. So as a result of this, mafia smack. Mm-hmm. How dare you? How dare you?
Yeah. But fortunately, ours found their way here to California. Our ancestors are, relatives.
Literally, it was like my dad and my mom.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm first generation.
Oh, yeah, I'm third.
Oh, okay. Oh, shit, you've been here a while, man.
Yeah, grandparents came here.
Yeah.
Shit. Grandpa came for Kaiser work, actually.
Kaiser?
For Henry J. Kaiser, yeah.
The steel mill?
The shipyard.
Oh, Kaiser shipyard. Okay. Because the Kaiser steel mill. The Kaiser steel mill is like out in Fontana.
And my other one, he was military police.
Okay, yeah, that was my dad. He was in military police in Vietnam.
Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, he came here after the war.
Yep. So that's how we wound up where we are. But it did seem like probably not in the best interest to stay where he was. Let's see. Child soldier. What are y'all talking about?
Child soldier.
Well, they must be talking about like another country. Oh, okay. We have MOT here.
Yeah, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on? What's going on? Yeah, I scheduled this same time as you. My bad, brother. But did you hear the clip I played on Malcolm X?
Nah.
MOT. Okay, I'm gonna play it now. You got to hear this, and this is for all the people who just got in.
Hey, now look, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna stay on the stream, but I'm gonna be muted for a while. Let me get my daughter in the bath and kind of just get things situated. Okay.
Yeah. Take care.
I'm gonna be listening in though. What's going on, MOT?
All right. Cool.
What up, man?
All right. So take a listen at this and tell me, was Malcolm X red pill? This is from his autobiography.
Organizing, recruiting, buttonholing brothers and sisters on the street, speaking to rapt audiences, Malcolm X brought scores of new members to New York's Temple 7. He also established new temples in Hartford and Atlanta, and spurred more growth in the Philadelphia, Boston, and Springfield, Massachusetts temples. He spent so much time traveling that the nation provided him with a car. His life became one of constant motion, lecturing, teaching, spreading the word of Islam. He brought thousands of new members into the fold, and his words touched many thousands more. He was a dynamo, charismatic, dedicated, articulate, and as noted by increasing numbers of Muslim sisters, single.
I had always been very careful to stay completely clear of any personal closeness with any of the Muslim sisters. My total commitment to Islam demanded having no interest, especially I felt no women. In almost every temple, at least one single sister had let out some broad hint that she thought I needed a wife, so I always made it clear that marriage had no interest for me whatsoever. I was too busy. Every month when I went to Chicago, I would find that some sister had written complaining to Mr. Muhammad that I had talked so hard against women when I taught our special classes about the different natures of the two sexes. Now, Islam has very strict laws and teachings about women, the core of them being that the true nature of a man is to be strong and a woman's true nature is to be weak. And while a man must at all times respect his woman, at the same time he needs to understand that he must control her if he expects to get her respect. And in those days, I had my own personal reasons. I wouldn't have considered it possible for me to love any woman. I had too much experience that women were only tricky, deceitful, untrustworthy flesh. I had seen too many men ruined, or at least tied down, or in some other way messed up by women. Women talk too much. To tell a woman not to talk was like telling Jesse James not to carry a gun, or telling a hen not to cackle. Can you imagine Jesse James without a gun, or a hen that didn't cackle? And for anyone in any kind of leadership position, such as I was, the worst thing in the world that he could have was the wrong woman. Even Samson, the world's strongest man, was destroyed by the woman who slept in his arms. She was the one whose words hurt him. Anyway, it had been 10 years since I thought anything about any mistress, I guess, and as a minister now, I was thinking even less about getting any wife. And Mr. Muhammad himself encouraged me to stay single. This sister, well, in 1956, she joined Temple 7. I just noticed her. Not with the slightest interest, you understand. For about the next year, I just noticed her. You know, she never would have dreamed I was even thinking about her. In fact, probably you couldn't have convinced her I even knew her name. It was Sister Betty X. She was tall, brown skin, darker than I was, and she had brown eyes. I knew she was a native of Detroit and that she had been a student at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, an education major. She was in New York in one of the big hospitals' school of nursing. She lectured to the Muslim girls in women's classes on hygiene and medical facts. One day, I thought it would help the women's classes if I took her, just because she happened to be an instructor, to the Museum of Natural History. I wanted to show her some museum displays having to do with the tree of evolution that would help her in her lectures. I could show her proofs of Mr. Muhammad's teachings of such things as that the filthy pig is only a large rodent. The pig is a graft between a rat, a cat, and a dog, Mr. Muhammad taught us. When I mentioned my idea to Sister Betty X, I made it very clear that it was just to help her lectures to her sisters. I had even convinced myself that this was the only reason. Then, by the time of the afternoon I said we would go, well, I telephoned her. I told her I had to cancel the trip, that something important had come up. She said, "Well, you sure waited long enough to tell me, Brother Minister. I was just ready to walk out the door." So I told her, "Well, all right, just come on then. I'd make it somehow." But I wasn't going to have much time. While we were down there, offhandedly, I asked her all kinds of things. I just wanted some idea of her thinking. You understand, I mean, how she thought. I was halfway impressed by her intelligence and also her education. In those days, She was one of those few whom we had attracted who had attended college. Then, right after that, one of the oldest sisters confided to me a personal problem that Sister Betty X was having. I was really surprised that when she had had the chance, Sister Betty X had not mentioned anything to me about it. Every Muslim minister is always hearing the problems of young people whose parents have ostracized them for becoming Muslims. Well, when Sister Betty X told her foster parents who were financing her education that she was a Muslim, they gave her a choice: leave the Muslims or they'd cut off her nursing school. It was right near the end of her term, but she was hanging on to Islam. She began taking babysitting jobs for some of the doctors who lived on the grounds of the hospital where she was training. In my position, I would never have made any move without thinking how it would affect the Nation of Islam organization as a whole. I got to turning it over in my mind. What would happen if I just should happen sometime to think about getting married to somebody? For instance, Sister Betty X. Although it could be any sister in any temple, but Sister Betty X, for instance, would just happen to be the right height for somebody of my height, and also the right age. I was so shocked at myself when I realized what I was thinking. I quit going anywhere near Sister Betty X or anywhere I knew she would be. If she came into our restaurant and I was there, I went out somewhere. I was glad I knew that she had no idea what I'd been thinking about. My not talking to her wouldn't give her any reason to think anything, since there had never been one personal word spoken between us, even if she had thought anything. I studied about if I just should happen to say something to her, what would her position be? Because she wasn't going to get any chance to embarrass me. I had heard too many women bragging, "I told that chump, get lost." I had too much experience of the kind to make a man very cautious. I wasn't about to say any of that romance stuff that Hollywood and television had filled women's heads with. If I was going to do something, I was going to do it directly. And anything I was going to do, I was going to do my way. And because I wanted to do it, not because I saw somebody do it or read about it in a book or saw it in a moving picture somewhere. I told Mr. Muhammad when I visited him in Chicago that month that I was thinking about a very serious step. He smiled when he heard what it was. I told him I was just thinking about it, that was all. Mr. Muhammad said that he'd like to meet this sister. The nation by this time was financially able to bear the expenses so that instructor sisters from different temples could be sent to Chicago to attend the headquarters Temple 2 women's classes and, while there, to meet the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in person. Sister Betty X, of course, knew all about this, so there was no reason for her to think anything of it when it was arranged for her to go to Chicago. And like all visiting instructor sisters, she was the house guest of the messenger and Sister Clara Muhammad. Mr. Muhammad told me that he thought Sister Betty X was a fine sister. If you're thinking about doing a thing, you ought to make up your mind if you're going to do it or not do it. One Sunday night after the Temple 7 meeting, I drove my car out in the Garden State Parkway. I was on my way to visit my brother Wilfred in Detroit. Wilfred, the year before, in 1957, had been made the minister of Detroit's Temple Number 1. I hadn't seen him or any of my family in a good while. It was about 10 in the morning when I got inside Detroit. Getting gas at a filling station, I just went to their payphone on a wall. I telephoned Sister Betty X. I had to get information to get the number of the nurse's residence at this hospital. Most numbers I memorized, but I had always made it some point never to memorize her number. Somebody got her to the phone finally. She said, "Oh, hello, Brother Minister." I just said it to her direct. "Look, do you want to get married?" Naturally, she acted all surprised and shocked. The more I have thought about it, to this day, I believe she was always putting on an act, because women know. They know. She said, just like I knew she would, "Yes." Then
Okay, MLT. So some of the things that he said was very red pillish.
Oh yeah. I mean, like being like very like you need to understand, man, like back in those days, you know how people try to swing all this stupid hyperbole about how women are out of control? No, they were actually out of control back then. Way out.
Yeah, he mentions that in the book. Yeah.
Out of control. Like, I'm talking, like, you turn a corner, this woman would fucking unzip and do whatever the fuck she wanted. And her ass was not watched consistently. And as soon as they kind of got out of their parents' kind of care, like if they weren't married at like a younger age, I'm telling you, man, the neighborhood would run through a fucking woman like it wasn't shit. And especially because then the STD rate is nowhere near what the fuck it is now. There was next to no consequences for a woman doing that type of shit. Yeah. Yeah, my grandfather used to let me know about women were way more out of control than they were, before he had died and shit in the late 90s. Yeah, he was like, you literally could not turn a corner on a whore. She would fuck the entire neighborhood. Relatives, and you have all these dudes, most of them unproductive, who got access and ended up getting this motherfucker pregnant. And that was the fucking, like, they're kind of fine with the working class dudes, but they was not letting the unproductive dudes get access. And that's what kind of happened during that era. That's why they had so many kids. Because, yeah, but everything that he was saying, man, was pretty spot on about being disciplined around fucking women, especially like in this age right here. The women got too many options. Back then, the women didn't have no options at all. And any option that they got access to, they fucked. Because they never were going to get another option. Like that's what like most of these church trips was about. They're nothing but fuck fest. That's all it was. Yeah. So, yeah, man. I mean, you got to be self-disciplined around the women, because if you be around them and they love that pastoral type of shit too, women can't wait to fuck a pastor. A dude with some type of power in the church, every woman wanted that fucking dude, especially back then. Yeah, man.
He didn't really talk about the sexual. I mean, he did in the Detroit Red, portion of the book, but he didn't really talk about the sexual exploits. He was talking about more like they were, because this was supposed to be like a sterile environment, like they were approaching him for marriage and shit like that, and he would.
I'm just telling you that the experience of actually what was happening everywhere else versus that so-called sterile environment, like. The Muslim environment was the least sexual of all of them. And what was going on elsewhere is the reason why he had to be fucking disciplined in the first place. Because it's nearly impossible for him to be going into these other spaces and not hear about the shit that's going on. Which is why he had to be so disciplined in the first place.
And speaking of discipline, what do you think of him? It appears that he abstained for a decade.
Yeah.
Now, Malcolm X, those who talk about him, I don't know if it's written, but they say he lived off of 4 hours of sleep nightly. He was extraordinarily disciplined. And, you can
live off 4 hours of sleep. Like, when you're like these, if you ever known anybody who's been to those type of special trainings, like, yeah, man, you can easily live off 4 hours of sleep a night. It's something that you have to kind of, attune your body to, but it's definitely doable. It takes a lot of fucking that type of discipline that you're kind of forced to do it in those circumstances. But I can see that.
Yeah. So, and that combined with he seemed to have abstained for 10 years. So, like, what are your thoughts? Because I think, and I was telling Complex this earlier, I think in modern communities, guys like that would be looked down upon, called incel, called bitch broke, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You ain't got no bitches type thing. And he probably...
nobody's going to talk to a church official like that, though. Because they know church official got the access if they wanted it, right?
So you're saying the mentality was the same, it's just the circumstances, because he was a church official.
Correct.
Okay.
Because, like, listen, I mean, like, in those church environments, man, everybody wants access to that power. And the only way you do it is the deacons and all that kind of shit. So they have to exercise a lot of discipline in those environments. And it wasn't a type of, you know how it's presented here? It's not that way for church officials because they know church officials can get it. They're around these women all the fucking time, especially broken ones or fucked up ones.
Mm-hmm.
Who actually want to get out of their environment so bad that they'll do anything, even on the side, to get money.
True.
Yeah, but I can totally see it because like the older church people, like way back in the day, they were on that type of shit that Malcolm X was on. They were actually more disciplined than like more of the recent people today who are in the church now.
I do feel like I would be a little lethargic during the day. But I think that maybe if you do it so often, kind of like keto, you go through that shock and then, you know, your body accepts it and finds another source of nutrients or of carbohydrates. So,
I mean, but you know, if you travel all the time for a living, building shit all the time, and your actual day is filled up with all types of shit all the time, I mean, it's just not something that you would ever need to like return to after a while. You know?
I mean, Brother Truth, I think we're capable of a lot more than, you know, we do, you know. But I think that you probably have to get past those initial stages and then, yeah, you can do it. And then like, if you fall off and you start getting your 8 hours again, you have to like retrain your body to do it. You know, I don't know. I've never done it. You know, of course there's that period during finals, you know, when you're a student or something like that, that you do that. But as far as like long-term for years on end, no, I haven't done it.
Like,
I mean, go for it.
Like I see my older brother do that. Like he was in Tennessee. He was going to diesel mechanic school, and then he worked 8 hours of like UPS. And like whenever he came home for like the breaks, this dude would sleep like 16 hours a fucking day. Because going to his school and actual work, he actually didn't get but 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Right? So it does catch up with you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I got to tell you, like, those sleeps were great. Like, after finals or something, you just pass out.
Oh, man. Greatness.
Like,
greatness.
Those be the best. Those where you just sleep all day and, like, you go to bed at night and then you wake up at night, you know? Those are the best. Vision, I don't remember that part. I haven't read this since college age. So I don't remember that part. It took me a while to find this on audiobook, but you know, when he talked to a Mason of any type, I don't really remember that. But as far as proving you wrong, I mean, it's your assertion. I wouldn't try to prove a negative, but I mean, you can definitely do that. So a circle being 360 degrees is simply because of, it was two reasons, basically. One, because that's how many days they believed was in a year during Egyptian times. They were a little off, which kind of set the seasons off. It took a while to get completely accurate, right down to daylight savings time. And two, 360 is divisible by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 12. So it's a very divisible number, which is why it's used. So those are the reasons it says 360 degrees. But I'm not really into, you know, the whole Mason thing. I'm not against them or anything like that. It's just that, you know, I don't really study what they do.
I mean, the autocratic system is hard to get to the top of, and I really don't care for it. You know, I mean, I have several brothers who are those. I have one who was a third degree, but all the shit that goes along with it, I'm not interested.
Yeah, you know, I'm not a family member. I mean, I have family members who are in it, you know, and in Easter Stars and shit, but it's just like, you know, that's their thing, you know, kind of like fraternities. So I have friends who are there. I'm not for it or against it. It's just that, you know, that's their thing.
Yeah, and I had some family members who got their life extremely together after they joined. So it's still let's just be glad that we have freedom of assembly, peaceful assembly.
Right.
We get to join these organizations or not, as it is. So.
Yeah, true. Just because your father or grandfather was, you don't have to become one yourself. But yeah, what prompted that vision? That's an interesting thing to bring up. Let's see. But yeah, so I think a lot of people, because what you hear most when talking about Malcolm X is that whole, unprotected spiel that they like to use. Like they're the most unprotected. Like they always kind of hide behind that as if that is the totality of his work. But they never want to play the portion where he says, deceitful, and treacherous and things like that. They don't want to play that clip. They kind of go in the other direction and say, oh, they're the least protected. And they hide behind that. I find that very interesting.
Yeah, that whole least protected thing, man, it's such an oxymoron. Like, they're protected from all types of bad decision-making processes. Yeah, so.
Well, it's funny because in here, I'll see if I could find it, but it's funny what he says when he says least protected, because they're talking about something very specific. Here, one moment. Kim Cole. Let's see. I was watching something earlier on the chick Kim Cole. I didn't know that she was on In Living Color.
Kim Cole, yeah.
Yeah. And I also didn't know that she used to be fat.
Yeah, she was. No, dude, she was one of the original people on there. She was skinny, then she went fat, and I guess what? Is she skinny again?
Well, no, she's fat again. So apparently, before In Living Color, she was fat, right?
Okay, and then she went skinny, and then she got on Living Color, and then she went fat again.
Exactly, and you could kind of see her fattening as Living Single progressed.
Yeah.
Now she's just like.
Yeah, she kind of went. You saw the BBW transition on the show.
The BBW transition.
Yeah. It's like melting in reverse. Like that's what she was doing. She was melting in reverse.
Melting in reverse.
Yeah. Like instead of for like melting away, she was like melt was getting into her. I don't know. Like how would you describe that?
Kind of like
man. That's what it was.
Melting in reverse.
Hold on, I'm looking up the Malcolm X here. But actually, when she was on In Living Color, because I just seen like this quick documentary of it. When she was on In Living Color, she was sexy.
She was attractive. Yeah, she was attractive. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't know she was big before then, to be honest with you.
Well, apparently, because I watched this quick documentary, like whatever happened to such and such type deal on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so apparently she was fired from In Living Color. That's why I clicked on. I was like, oh, I didn't know she was even on In Living Color. Let me click.
Yeah. She was one of the original cast members.
Yeah, exactly. So, and they talk about how she started off doing plus size modeling. I was like, wait a minute, she's plus size now. She wasn't
back then.
Plus size back then, huh?
Plus size modeling back then.
Yeah, she was doing plus size modeling. She started off doing plus size modeling.
Okay.
And comedy.
So I was gonna say, because she got on as a comedian.
Yeah, exactly. And then but she said she lost 50 pounds, maybe to further her career, and she got the In Living Color gig.
Well, she didn't see any correlation there.
Well, yeah, she definitely did. That's why she did it. But I'm just saying, ladies, like y'all are just like one routine away from a lot, because she pretty much had her pick of the litter. you know, when it comes to jobs and men after she lost that weight.
She was attractive, dude. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah, no, she definitely had her day. Like she beat Kim Fields, in my opinion, and she was actually up there with Layla Rashad.
I never knew that she was plus size prior to In Living Color. I thought that was her size, and I thought that she just got big.
Yeah,
from there.
Because that's how it normally happens. Like they get it with age, and that's what happened to the real Layla Rashad.
Yeah, you know? She just kind of like, again, she did the BBW transition.
Yeah, and in her defense, it was a slow transition, but.
Well, I mean, it's the natural transition if you're going to transition into a BBW.
Which you should, just out of respect for, you know, the person you're with, ladies, then do it.
I don't think they care, man. I think they want to. Like a friend of mine got married, I think 4 years ago at this point. Woman was looking amazing, and she threw all of that shit fucking away the moment he moved in with her after they fucking got married. This motherfucker gained like 75 fucking pounds. And I went there like a year ago, and I'm like, you have got to be fucking kidding me.
You know who did that? And it's funny even today. You know who did that shit? My aunt. My aunt did that to my uncle after 2 kids. Unc was like, I ain't having that shit because, you know, family. He like, I ain't having that shit. They went through the divorce. And then maybe like 9 months later, or maybe a year, I don't know. I was a kid. I seen her on a date at a movie theater, and she lost all of it. She lost all of it. And she never gained it back. Like she learned her lesson. Like she's married now. Her and her husband take trips around the world and shit. You know, I mean, of course, even though she divorced my uncle, she's still my cousin's mother. You know, like, but she's still slim right now. So yeah,
never again.
Yeah, exactly. She learned. You know, but Unc, he wasn't having that shit. I'm sure
I didn't marry no BBW.
Yeah. It's like he didn't sign up for that. And I was a kid. She was
nobody, like, and that shit ends up happening, bro. Like nobody signs up for that.
Yeah.
Like it's not in the contract, man. It's not in the contract.
Exactly. Well, I mean, sickness and health is kind of a contract. That's probably her defense, but he's like,
nah, man.
But she's like, I'm not gonna lose another good man, to another high value man, to some bullshit. So,
I mean, like plus size model is like broken teeth model. Like it don't
crusty hand model or some shit like that.
Yeah, like.
All right. So this is Malcolm on the whole protected thing, because there's something interesting in this. I brought up in the beginning, but I'll bring it up again. Hold on.
Disrespected person in America is the black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the black woman. The most neglected person in America is the black woman. And as Muslims, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us to respect our women and to protect our women. And the only time a Muslim really gets real violent is when someone goes to molest his woman. We will kill you for our woman. I'm making it plain, yes. We will kill you for our woman. We believe that if the white man will do whatever is necessary to see that his woman gets respect and protection, then you and I will never be recognized as men until we stand up like men and place the same penalty over the head of anyone who puts his filthy hands out to put in the direction of our women.
What the fuck is happening after he's talking? Is that clapping or some type of seance or something?
Yeah, it's that church thing. Even though that's not in a Muslim church, I think he was going to a place where he converts people, because they did that back then. They kind of stood on the corners or had their little halls, and they had like non-Muslims come and listen to what they're talking about, and
A
they would say stuff
conversion
like that to
center?
bring them in. Yeah,
A
I mean, like
conversion center?
at least with Martin Luther King and the Baptists, you had the people who was like, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Well, so it was
Oh.
kind of like that, like the yeah and mm-hmm. I think a lot of the people listening to this particular thing was Christian, because the Muslims are more disciplined.
Oh, okay. Because I was wondering, like, who the fuck is like, dude? I've been to Muslim services before. I've never heard no shit like that.
Yeah, they never do that.
I've never
It's
heard.
about more structure and discipline.
Wow. Yeah. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I used to go. They took my nail clippers. It was very strange. It was very strange getting pat down before going to church or going to mosque. But yeah, they took my nail clippers. And I had Carmex in my pocket, and they made me smell it. So, but they're serious. And the men sit on one side, and the women sat on the other.
Yes.
So it's very structured and very disciplined, which leads me to believe that this was a Christian audience. Because it also follows that every time there's a period, there's a yeah, and every time there's a comma or a semicolon, there's a mm-hmm. It kind of followed that template, which led me to believe that that's what it was, and it makes sense considering what he was saying. It's like he's selling the concept to women, so the women can in turn come, and the high number of women will sell the religion to the men. So he was definitely boosting. But it's funny because the message, notice how he said our women. And I think that's what's lost. Like, a lot of these independent entities aren't really our women. They're no one's women.
Yeah, they're subsidiaries, independent subsidiaries of the black family.
Okay, you got to elaborate. You got to elaborate on what you mean by that in this context.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that these people are on their independent shit, and they're not part of the group. They're just an independent subsidiary that does whatever it wants to.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't really protect somebody like that, because they can invoke a situation. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
It's kind of like putting a cat on a leash, and you're gonna walk a cat. Like, are you okay?
Yeah, exactly. You're just not going to do it.
Yeah, no. You can. You just will be along for the walk. You're not gonna be pulling that thing anywhere.
Yeah, or trying to get it to bathe.
Cat, you put the leash on the cat, and then the cat takes you for a walk.
Yeah, that's what happens.
But yeah, like his whole body of work, like they kind of reduced it to that, and they even took that portion out of context. But really, his opinions were, that the men have a role and the women have a role. He's hard on the women, and he got a lot of complaints for being hard on women. He described them as treacherous, and he didn't want to be used in the way of saying that, this guy just keep coming at me and stuff like that. So he had a lot of points that we bring up today.
I love that, man. These women are treacherous.
Yeah, like he just straight out said deceitful and treacherous. And that's why, like I said, I read the book, maybe like 20 years ago, but that part stood out to me, because there was no depiction of that in the movie. There was no depiction of that in the movie. So I don't have a paper copy, Vision. I don't have any copy, actually. I have Douglas here, but I don't have X. I might just get one just to have it, but I'll take your word for it on the Mason stuff. But I'm really indifferent as far as how they feel about the circle and things like that. But I don't doubt it exists. It's just I don't. Trigonometry was a long time ago for me. I mean, like I just so happened to remember that that 360 degree snippet. I think somebody told it to me as an anecdote about why it's 360 degrees. And it makes sense as far as how it's divisible by all numbers 1 through 10, but 7. So, that's a good as reason as any, right?
Does that mean something?
I don't know. I don't study masonry like that. I mean, it might, but
kind of depends on how you're oriented.
Okay.
It depends. Because numbers are alive, so to speak. So there's significance in numbers, that stand out, such as 7 and 9 and 3, and I mean, all numbers have some sort of significance to them. But when you say, okay, all of the shapes that make up our third dimensional reality all equal 360 degrees, whether it's a circle, a rectangle, a square, or triangle, right? And with all shapes that make up third dimensional reality, all of them equal 360 degrees, but the one number that number is not divisible by is by 7. So 7 is symbolically a God number or something, rather, right? So that symbolizes the days of creation and all that other shit. So yeah.
Okay, so I'll go down this rabbit hole for a second. So vision, yeah, I mean, the 90 times 4 is 7, so, or is 360. So I can understand that, but that's more trigonometry. I mean, okay, there's reason why people believe that there's magic to certain things, and I get it. So take as you said, 7, for example. It's really not okay. It appears magic is science that you don't understand yet. Basically, what was happening was there was a game that Romans and I think Greeks even played with dice. Now, when dealing with dice for mathematical reasons that I won't get into, the number 7 will come up 1/6 of the time, which is more often than any other number. The assumption of that was that this number was blessed by the gods. Now,
i.e. lucky.
Yeah, i.e. lucky. But I believe they say fortuitous has I think that was one of their gods, actually. We just call it fortune, but
yeah, but in the modern day context, lucky number 7.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, when you roll 2 dice, 7 comes up 1/6 of the time. So that's why that's considered like lucky. And 6 comes up 5 out of 36, and so does 8. So 7 would come up like more often than any other individual number. So, but yeah, so a lot of things, it's math, I mean, I'm pretty sure that that some groups of people have taken, a numerology approach to things like the angles that make up a square, and the sum being 360, as well as the number of degrees in a circle. But I mean, that's really based on how much they want to make a degree, the length of pi on how much they want to make a degree. They really could have used anything. Like they could double it and make it 720 if they so choose, or if they so choose to have done it back then, and still would be equally divisible, just smaller degrees. I mean, it's a coincidence, if anything. It's not, it's not that. And also 90 could have been chosen for the very reason that in a square, it does sum to 360. So it's best to not really, like, in my opinion. I mean, I know people have their things like zodiacs and shit like that. Like, people have their things. I don't give it much. I I don't really lose sleep over it. I don't.
They want you to definitely be down and respected. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't. There, Vision. There's a reason. There's a reason for it. I'll just put it like that. There's a reason for it, and it's not supernatural. So, but I mean, okay, put it like this: if they decided to go with the 720-degree circle, then the square, then a right angle would be considered 180 degrees, and the sum would still be the same. So it's, once again, it's not really magic. It's just a different understanding of mathematics. So yeah, I can't believe you took me down that. Oh yeah. I guess somebody has something to say about Kim Coles, but yeah, she used to be a biggin. But yeah, so I mean, in conclusion on the whole Malcolm X thing, Malcolm X was a highly intelligent brother. He was a leader of men. He was a lot of great things, and he also was red-pilled. He also understood the nature of women and acted accordingly. It even affected the way that he proposed to his later wife and widow. Like it's that understanding, and he also, and what's very interesting is that about people like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, et cetera, is that you realize two things. Just taking them two as an example. One, you will not get far in your goal as far as building a community or society or contributing to it without either abstaining from women or getting with a seductive, or excuse me, a submissive, supportive woman. That's it. There is no in between. You cannot get with a woman that's going to hold you back if you want to move yourself in society forward. So, Brother Truth, what's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, fellas? I was just listening in and hear you guys talk about numerology. Hey, what's up, fellas?
Oh yeah, yeah. You have something to say on that? To me, I mean, it's
yeah,
just,
man. It's you know, all this numerology shit is based in Kabbalism. You know, it really comes from the ancient Jewish religion, where it actually stems from ancient Canaanite religion that worshipped the Holy Trinity of Lilith, Samuel, which is Lucifer, and Baal. Well, Baal and Lucifer are interchangeable in these religions. So yeah, this whole numerology shit, bro, it's based off of that. It's based off of ancient Canaanite religion. It's based off of ancient, a lot of ancient esoteric religions, specifically Kabbalism, which is rooted in ancient Canaanite paganism.
no, I get what you're saying, but for me, and this is just for me. Do what you like. So there was a movie called A Beautiful Mind, where you had this brilliant mathematician with a mental disorder, with a chemical imbalance of sorts. And when he went into his disturbed mental state, he would find stuff in newspapers, and he was decoding stuff, and he had all this shredded newspapers and stuff like that. It was all highlighted and circled. He was looking so deep into it that he was finding stuff that wasn't necessarily there. At the end of the day, it was just newspapers, and he was just a person with a mental illness cutting up newspapers and circling stuff.
Well, it goes a bit deeper than that. I mean, because there is such thing known as the Fibonacci sequence, right? Everything in nature has a mathematical equation that applies everything from a seashell to, like, the inside of a flower. everything adheres to that Fibonacci sequence. There is a mathematic portion of the universe that can be calculated. And what Kabbalism do is, take that mathematic sequence, right, and they apply meaning to it. They apply spiritual meaning to it. They apply a mental meaning to it. They take, your birthday, they take, the positioning of the fucking sun and the date and a whole bunch of shit. And they basically calculate this based off of, pretty much witchcraft, magic. There's no other way to put it. But that's what when you hear bitches talking about your zodiac sign and dates and what time of night you was born, all that shit is based in Kabbalism, which is again the rooted in that ancient Baal worshiping, Lilith worshiping Canaanite religion.
Look, I mean, I'm be honest. It's not that I don't fuck zodiac bitches, because I do.
Facts.
But
hey, with the wettest, man, straight up.
Yeah, because there's so many of them. But
yeah, dude, like they come out the woodwork, man.
Like she has to be a little bit hotter than a regular. If you're gonna have me put up with some zodiac shit, you got to be a little hotter than a regular chick. Cause I swear,
hey, for real, if I gotta worry about getting my soul snatched, bitch, you gotta have, what I'm saying, a good proportion, bitch. I can't have no bitch out here looking like she motherfucking frequent Krispy Kreme and McDonald's every day.
Oh no, I mean I wouldn't fuck that anyway. But I'm just saying, like, you have a set standard, and then if they come with some zodiac shit, you got to be that much hotter. It's like, look, you're hot enough to fuck, but you're not hot enough to fuck and be zodiac. You got to. If you want this penis, you got to give up the zodiac. Like it's kind of like on that, But the shit's, probably because I'm just, at first it seems harmless, but after a while, the shit does. I knew you was like that. You're a fucking Scorpio. Shut the fuck up.
They take that shit too fucking serious, bro. And what the thing is, man, is it comes from, most niggas not traveling, not being, exposed to different shit, because like, nigga, there's nobody asking you your zodiac sign in motherfucking, Iraq. You know what I mean? Like, ain't nobody asking for no zodiac sign and got Congo, nigga. Like, straight up, bro. It's only a Western type shit, dog. Because we done got so comfortable, we actually are able to, dive into the bullshit. But when your ass is on the verge of death and you got fucking bombs dropping on your ass and you got to worry about getting blown up while you're driving, you gives a fuck about that fuck shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like the bombs are just hitting the Leos. Yeah. Black Mind, what's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to answer something about the speech that Malcolm made when he talked about protecting Black women.
Okay.
I know that, sorry, inside of the NOI temples when I was a kid, I wasn't in the NOI, but there were, and even when I was in college and I left my hometown, you could go into their temples when they had their sermons, if you will, but you weren't to record unless that time was designated for recording. So yeah, we did get searched, and recordings were not just allowed as a default. There had to be permission granted for recordings.
Okay.
So usually when you hear an NOI member's speech somewhere, it's not in the temple, it's somewhere else. Because remember, the NOI was largely about outreaching and uplifting the lost found Black man in the wilderness of North America, as they said it. So it's common for them to go to other venues to speak. And that's where you oftentimes hear many of the recordings. So when Malcolm was talking, I think that might have been in a church. And that's why you would hear that type of call and response. But in today's time, you will hear the same call and response pattern. And I don't know about the NOI temples. I know that you did hear it when they weren't recording. When you just went for one of their regular services and they weren't recording, you would hear a call and response, but what you would hear was different. So you weren't necessarily going to hear amen and hallelujah, but you were going to hear some kind of response. And that's what we were hearing when Malcolm was talking. I think that might have been in response to a photograph that came out from the march on Selma when a police officer was brutalizing a black woman, and that was caught on photograph. It might have been a response to that, but my memory on that's fuzzy. But as far as what you hear, that's what that is. More than likely, it was he was speaking at a church or at somebody's community center or something of that nature. And now, if you go into an Orthodox African American masjid, you will still hear some of the call and response, and or you hear some of the response in response to the sermon. So you'll hear people saying certain things. I'm not saying we're supposed to do that as Orthodox Muslims. I'm just saying that it's still done because we're still African. So more than likely, that's what you're hearing. I just wanted to clear that up and to explain that Malcolm. I want to thank you for playing that clip too, because Malcolm did say exactly what I was talking about, and he said he wasn't going to open himself up to be embarrassed because he'd heard them bragging about how embarrassingly they shot men down and how many men they shot down.
Bro, hey, real talk, Black Mind. Hey, I appreciate you breaking that down, man. Like straight up, man. You dropping some knowledge on the nigga. Come out. My father, he was a part of the nation, man. I never was like really practicing. I practiced growing up, but I never carried it on. But yeah, that recording is fucking groundbreaking, bro. I'm gonna have to track that shit down, man. Straight up, I'm gonna track that shit down, man, because it's a lot of shit about Brother Malcolm, dog. That I know about him, dog, but I really haven't like delved into his life like that, you know. And I think I'm doing myself a disservice.
Yeah, because there's a lot in his autobiography that's here, that's there, that's not in the movie. Don't get me wrong, the movie was very, very accurate in comparison to the two. I put the link to his autobiography there. The portion that I played was about 2 hours and 43 minutes in.
Okay. What's crazy is that he was talking about hoes in the 1960s. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Where they were kind of wholesome. You know what I'm saying? They was. I mean, even though shit, they dirt was just dug deeper. You know, it wasn't out there, but he was saying that shit about hoes in 1960. I mean, imagine what he would say about these wild ass hyenas out here.
Brother Truth, can you see the private chat right now?
Let me pull it up. Yeah.
Okay. All right. What I sent there are two links to that speech where he was talking about protecting the black women. And so I'm putting them in there so that you can start there. I would say, of course, every black man, if we have a choice and a chance, should read his autobiography. That is a necessity, because when we're talking about reform, we have a debate going on about how we're going to, who can we take with us if we're going to reform and try to build Zamunda and then Wakanda. And one thing that most of us can agree on both sides of this debate is that Malcolm was somebody who could have done the foolishness, but then he stopped, and he's somebody that actually did reform. And so I proposed what I called the Malcolm X standard of reform. And so when you read that book, then you can actually see a blueprint for anybody to reform. And so that's why I would say, yeah, we definitely should. We should all read. We should all get into Malcolm. I know in the NOI, not so much publicly, but privately, there would have been people that would have said, no, he was a traitor, leave him alone. And this went on all the way up until like the 80s. People felt comfortable saying this. But in the 90s, I noticed a shift. But in any case, it would be a good idea.
I know there was a speculation that Minister Farrakhan had a hand in his death. There especially was it Malcolm X's wife or his daughter or something like that. They had a contention a couple of years ago.
Yeah, his wife. But
yeah,
I mean,
there was. But a documentary came out recently by an Orthodox Sunni Muslim. There was nothing to really, when he did the research, there was nothing to tie Farrakhan to it except comments that he made. There was nothing to tie him to it as far as like giving orders. There was no evidence of it. It's hard to prove a negative, but he did find out, even from video evidence and from witness statements, who else it was. And he found out that within Newark, everybody actually knew who it was that had done it. And so, and nobody can implicate Farrakhan even in those areas where they knew. But I just wanted to suffice it to say that before my class starts, the links I showed you, I remember that visual, and that I was told was taken in a church. The links I showed you to a video, but I remember another link somewhere where it said that was taken in the church in Los Angeles, and this was around the same time that they beat people. I guess it was in Birmingham or in Selma, and somebody photographed a woman being brutalized by a police officer, and a black man was also in the frame, but in the frame he wasn't interfering. Now I don't know what happened in a moving picture. I'm just saying that in the photograph, this went around, and he said we were the laughing stock of the world. And I'll say this: as much as I tell others, don't go out there and protect anybody that you don't know, especially when they told you they don't owe you. In the Muslim community, black or not, we actually do believe in protecting them, and I myself do believe in it. But there is a difference. There is some kind of appreciation, and there is a reward for it. And the reward is not. I mean, there's a reward in the afterlife. There's a reward in this life too. But you're not made to regret doing the right thing, and that's where the difference comes in. Whereas in the wider black community, black man gets out there, protects sisters, and in all facets of his life, he's made to regret it. And that's where the difference comes in. And look, thank you all for being patient with me. Take care, GameChanger. I hope I helped out, Brother Truth. I got to get to this class and be on time for it. Now, thanks for your patience, guys.
I appreciate it, bro. Appreciate it. Straight up.
Gladly, sir. Thanks for your patience, GameChanger.
I ain't protecting the man one of these bitches out here, man. I ain't going, man. Ain't no S on my chest, dog. And I'm not bulletproof. The nigga ain't got no cape on, dog. I'm good.
Well, in a nutshell, I mean, I can get it, because in the larger black community, it's not rewarded, it's punished. I understand that. And one thing that can happen is that even if they don't owe you the draws for protecting them, okay, fine. But celibacy can never be a reward for protection. Celibacy can never be a reward for any sacrifice you might make for women. And so if it's not going to be the draws, it's got to be something else. But they can't sit up and say, well, now that you showed me you're a good man to protect me, you got me dry as F. And that's and so now you my friend, and I'm you're my platonic shopping buddy, and I'm never going to hook you up with anybody else. They can't be doing that either. And so
well,
I
shit,
get
man,
it.
it really ain't even about the motherfucking peace league, you know, as brother, what's the dude name?
Like Donald Trump, I think Solo TV and Black Ram calls it that too.
Yeah, man. It's Coach Greg out. That's what it is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. So it ain't about the motherfucking peace league for me. It really come down to this, man. These hoes ain't motherfucking worth shit, dog. They ain't worth it, dog. Like for real, from a loyalty standpoint, man. Like, what's the fucking point? You know what I mean? Like, fucking or not fucking. Like, I'm not out here, you know, motherfucking saving any bitch that ain't a part of my direct bloodline.
Well, understandably, because it's not a reward. Whereas over here, if you protect somebody like that, the family, in a sense, is going to do things to look after you for years to come, as a show of appreciation. Especially if you get injured in it, or if you die, they're going to look out for your family. Her family is going to do that for your family. There was a case once where my wife was looking at some desserts in the store, and I walked up into the store behind her. And so I leaned over her shoulder and looked at try to see what she was looking at. And then I went back to the front to go and sit down, and the Egyptian man was behind the counter, and he said, "Is he harassing you?" And she said, "Hell no, that's my husband." And she called me by name. And so I turned around and, "What's up?" And she said, "This guy thought you were harassing me." So I told him in Arabic, "Look, I don't break the laws here. She's my wife. So I do flirt with her in public, but you know, that's legal, obviously. So, but thanks for looking out for, I really do appreciate that." And the man said, "Oh yeah, okay, glad to do it. And you don't owe anything for it," because the understanding is he's looking out for my wife, even though he didn't know she was my wife. They don't know each other. And so since I am actually the husband in this case, and he's looking out for her, then the understanding would be that now I would do the same for him or one of his family members if there's a need be, because there's a reciprocity. Whereas amongst us, we don't have that. I mean, you're right, they ain't really amounting to anything because there's no appreciation for it. And they wouldn't even tell their family members that might show you some kind of appreciation or do something for you in kind. They wouldn't even tell them about that. What they show is, "Oh, that was nice of you. Thank you, brother. And let's go shopping sometime." And then when you notice one of her friends or something, the point I'm making is that there is no appreciation. Like you're still less of a man than the one that was threatening her in the beginning. And
yeah, the point I'm making is I don't went down that road before. You know what I'm saying? Try to motherfucking play Captain Save him, dog. And I was left with a goddamn, a fucking arrest. You know what I mean?
Oh,
I was left with motherfucking goddamn fighting wounds and shit, dog. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
and this is like somebody like I really thought I knew. You know what I mean? And lo and behold, the bitch was lying. Lo and behold, you know what I'm saying? I'm jumping out the window over some dumb shit. Well, this is in my younger years, bro. Before I motherfucking, woke up to the bullshit. But yeah, man, like it's like, how the fuck are you gonna protect, a entity, dog, that has zero like morals? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like you basically trying to bodyguard a fucking snake.
Exactly. Cortez said it in the chat. You can't protect someone that brags about how to reject good men, and it is a part of the culture,
Bruh.
where
What was that rapper?
No,
that rapper came out and said, "If you ain't got 3 bodies, I don't want you. If you're not a murdering ass motherfucking maniac, I don't want you." And then she said some shit the other day, like, it was City Girl or some shit like that. She say, I want my man to have nightmares or some shit like that, bro. Like, what? And it's like a good 92% of the hoes out here like that, if not higher.
Yeah, it's become part of the culture, and that's the difference. Where I live, they may not want a pushover, but it's not a part of the culture. You don't brag about rejecting good guys. Whereas, of course, in our culture back there stateside, that is the culture, and it's in Canada and in the UK too. But that being said, I got to run the class. Thank you, GameChanger. I wasn't trying to take over your stream, and take care of Brother Truth. I hope I helped.
You're good.
Yeah, man. Hey, dropping good knowledge, bro.
Thanks a million. Be good, guys.
All right, appreciate you. So on that note, I'm going to do closing thoughts. So let's start with complex design. Closing thoughts? Okay. Brother Truth, closing thoughts?
Oh, nah, man. She just thanks for having me on, bro. It's always entertaining, man, when I get a chance to catch a stream. I went ahead and hit that bell so I can catch the streams a bit more often.
Okay, I appreciate you, brother. Yeah, please do. And if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe. Other than that, I'd like to thank the Cash Apps and Super Chats. I'd like to thank the managers and moderators, those who are participating in the chat room, and those who are listening silently. Once again, this is GameChanger 00100. Game over. Peace.